If you like the story, you can support the author on Patreon. Link is in the description.
Chapter 41, The Beloved Sister. As I hear Dora's voice in my head, I feel my heartbeat quicken as my breathing becomes heavy. The darkness invades my mind, but I don't feel foggy. I think faster than I have ever before. I quickly grab the seeker coin and immediately feel the connection to her through magic. She is in a small Bulgarian forest. My immediate ideas of apparition are cut down. There is no way I can apparate that distance. That's thousands of kilometers. My body would be shredded halfway there in the bottom of the Mediterranean or Austria. Then it comes to me, I remember how Ron's brother goes to and from Romania. There is an illegal port quay near Margate's docks. The only place near there I've been to is South London. I immediately apparate there without hesitation. Before I even appear, I wrap myself in my cloak to hide, then transform into my Dementor form. Darkness floods the ground beneath and tendrils shattering it as I launch into the air and fly at my fastest speed towards Margate. Right now I'm flying faster than I ever have before, far faster than Lure can run. In less than an hour, I manage to reach the docks outside of Margate. I sweep my field of view as I begin searching for the soul of a wizard. My vision right now seems far better than it is normally. The first thing I find is a dock hidden with a Muggle aversion charm. There is a lone wizard sitting on the docks, seemingly protecting something. I fly down at him, passing through the aversion charm. I land in front of him and pick the old man up by the back of the neck. He looks confused as he grabs his neck, feeling my hand, but as I uncloak myself, his eyes light up in horror. My cloak envelops him and leaves his body limp. His arms fall to his sides. My eyes look directly into his. Where is the port quay at? My words filled with anxiousness. I don't speak through my mind but with my mouth. It makes a horrifying dark and dry voice. His eyes move to the end of the dock, in the water. He forces out, trying to breathe. I peer over the edge of the dock and see a vase sitting on top of the water like it were on a table. I look back at him before I drop him and speak. Speak of this to no one. My dark, raspy, dead voice seems to echo through the docks. I noticed he has pissed himself and is crying, but he nods anyway with his limp body. I ignore him as I reach down and touch the vase. As I touch the vase, the world around me shifts and spins like normal apparition times 1,000. In my Dementor form, I can't really see, so the rapid changing of orientation doesn't affect me. After only a few seconds the spinning stops and I'm left a few feet above an unfamiliar forest. I fall back to the ground as I shift into my human form. As my feet touch the forest floor, I immediately pull out the seeker coin and concentrate on where Dora is. Nearly 900 kilometers to my south by southeast in a small cave. Fuck, I mutter under my breath, that's about my max range for apparition at the moment. But it doesn't matter, I've already wasted an hour. I shift into human form and grab my wand. My shroud still falls from my body despite me not controlling it. I grit my teeth and apparate to Sis's location using as much controlled power as I can muster. Once I land inside the cave with a hard thunk, I can feel one of my legs is in pain. I look down at it to see I'm missing a big portion of skin from my calf to my knee. I ignore the blood and pain as I look around. The cave is dark, only lit by a small campfire, and Dora is in a corner huddled up. She is covered in a small sleeping bag. I check the entrance of the cave to see it is covered by a powerful ward as to let nothing in. Dora, I call out while hobbling over to her on my now messed up leg. Seeing no response, I hobble quicker and roll her over. What I see brings tears to my eyes as I drop to my knees. She is unconscious, her shirt is torn with bloody claw marks all over her, some of which are still bleeding. Her lips are dry like she hasn't had a chance to drink in days. But thankfully her eyes are twitching, so I know she is alive, if not just barely. I grab a blood coagulation pill from my cloak and feed it to her. I feel her forehead with the back of my hand. Her temperature is way too high and I don't have any water, so I need to get her somewhere safe to treat her fast. What did this to her, I wonder, as anger fills my mind. I close my eyes and focus on the surrounding souls to see 100 of them. All of which are not quite human but very close, so it must be some type of humanoid creatures. Some of them are resting just outside this cave. Knowing these are probably the creature that did this to her, I decide it's worth the risk. It doesn't matter if she comes to hate me after finding out what I am, as long as she is alive I'm fine with it. I shift into my Dementor form, which barely fits into the cave, and gently pick her up into my arms. The darkness floating off me covers the entire cave as I shroud us in my cloak. I fly outside and see 3 vampires sitting around a fire chatting with no care in the world. I feel a ruthless urge to butcher them right now, but hold onto my feelings until Dora is safe. After 30 seconds Dora's breathing is becoming ragged, but no matter how far I stretch my vision I can't find anything other than creatures. This forest is definitely enchanted to be many times bigger than any muggle could see. It is when I am starting to despair that I see a congregation of pure souls. Although they may not be human, they were almost human and the purest, most beautiful souls I have ever seen. Dora doesn't have much time, so I hedge my bets and fly straight towards them. Once I am near, I am greeted by the single most powerful ward I have ever seen. Stronger than the one on Hogwarts, hell, even stronger than the one on Sid's Island. I try to phase through it, but I can't, so I must all the strength I can into my cloak and begin hitting it desperately. I feel darkness bathe my mind as I wail, and my cloak expands into tendrils far bigger than the single one I usually use. The now 9 tendrils begin bombarding the shield at a faster and more relentless pace. They all begin to hit in a rhythmic slamming until they begin to slam together even harder than before. All 9 tendrils of black fog slam together with all my strength, and a crack forms running up the nearly invisible shield. Then I hear a woman's voice speak inside my head. "Wait, I'll open the barrier for you." The voice is soothing and causes me to calm down a bit. I regain clarity, feeling my sister's fading light in my arms. No longer losing myself, I stand there and watch as the barrier open. It looks like it continues into more forest, then opens up into a beautiful lake with a bright sun above. Chapter 42, Vila. Ignoring the drastic change in scenery, I continue forward towards the souls. As I enter the barrier, it closes up behind me with the crack slowly mending itself. When I get close to the lake, I notice there is a group of women dancing on top of the lake like something out of a fantasy movie. As I reach the shores of the lake, the women stop their dances and stare at me. I realize they are all extremely beautiful with similar features to each other. They all have gold or white hair with a variety of eye colors ranging from blue to golden and pale skin. The longer I stare, the more I feel compelled to look, so I quickly pull my eyes away. Even with my decrepit vision, I can still tell they are immensely attractive. As I force my eyes away, I set my unconscious sister on the ground softly. "Please, I beg of you, save her." My cold dead voice resounds in all their heads. I no longer speak with my mouth. I hear sloshing water as one of them walks towards me. I look up and meet her eyes. She is easily the most beautiful woman I have ever seen. Her skin is as white as chalk, yet somehow still looks healthy. Her hair is more of a shining silver color, very different from the rest, and her eyes are a glowing violet color. Her body is also different. The rest of the women are skinny while she has more of a motherly vibe. If it weren't for my distressed mind, I would have fallen into her charms. I force myself to look back down again at Dora on the ground, still breathing heavily. "And why do you want to save her?" I recognize her beautiful voice as the one that put down the barrier. Realizing I'm still in my Dementor form, I shift out into my human form. As my feet touch the ground, I fall to my knees as my injured leg can't support me. I look at my leg and see it's still bleeding just like before I shifted. I grit my teeth at the implications. I take a deep breath and look back up to her and meet her eyes. She seems very surprised at my transformation. I have tears threatening to fall from my eyes as I speak. "She is my family, my sister. I'll do anything, just please save her. I don't have the power." She looks at me with pity in her eyes as she peers between me and Sis. She will pass soon. It's not certain that even I can save her at this point. I lower my head as tears start to fall. "Please." My voice breaks as I yell. "If she dies, I don't know what I will do." I look up to meet her eyes. She flinches at my gaze. I see a hint of fear in her eyes as she sighs. "If I do save her, she will no longer be fully human when I'm done." I don't even hesitate as I lean up straight and speak. "Please, just save her." The woman nods. "We will have a lot to talk about when she is safe." She turns to the other women. "Prepare the ritual." The women start chattering, but I don't listen to them and focus on Nymfadora's twitching face and ever-shifting hair color. She looks like she is in pain, which caused my chest to tighten with anxiety. I feel a hand softly touch my shoulder. "You should back away while we perform the ritual." I look confused but still hobble a few steps back, grabbing a pill from my bag and eating it. "Why?" I ask while chewing the disgusting pill for maximum effect. She gestures back at Dora and I see the other women already there starting to strip her naked. Which causes my face to go red as I quickly look away. As I look away, the woman next to me giggles, seeing my flustered face. I decide it's best to take a walk with this woman as the others prepare the ritual. She walks slowly to stay in pace with my injured leg. "Don't worry about your sister, it is almost guaranteed that we can save her. As long as she is willing." She gives me a beautiful smile that causes my face to blush again. Seeing my blush she laughs. Honestly, I'm insulted how well you keep your calm even with me around. I look at her confused. Why would I not keep my calm? We are Vila. We can charm any man with a glance. I am the queen, yet you keep looking at me without falling under my charm. Her explanation confuses me more. What is a Vila? I've not taken magical creatures and beings class yet. She giggles again. We are just very beautiful human women, I suppose, but we can turn into harpies if you make us angry. I nod my head, zoning out a bit. Will my sister be all right? She smiles at my concern. Seeing as you don't know about Vila, I assume you don't know how they are made, correct? I nod as she continues. Good, because it's a secret. But I'll tell you since you are in my debt anyway. It used to be a Muggle tradition for women who were disgraced or unhappy in their lives to walk into this forest and keep walking until they dropped dead of exhaustion. A rather barbaric form of suicide, I know. But one lucky time a woman who was walking found this beautiful lake and decided it would be a much more suiting death. So she threw herself into the lake, but rather than dying she changed. She became more beautiful than any other. Now she possessed magic flowing inside her and the ability to turn into a harpy. And that is the story of how the first Vila came to be. In the few thousand years since then, the woman took in any female she found wandering the forest in search of death. She took thousands of years making a barrier she thought impenetrable around her sacred lake. No man had ever stepped foot near the lake until one day a beast showed up. The beast slammed on the barrier while carrying a dying woman in its arms. Out of both pity and fear the woman let them in. It turned out the beast was a man, boy. So the queen offered her aid to the pure soul who seemed to fear loss even more than her. She stops walking and looks at me with raised eyebrows. My face again goes red with shame. I am sorry about my intrusion, but I would do it again to save my sister. She smiles. It's fine, we will talk about compensation later. For now, I should go help with the ritual. Wizards are harder to turn into Vila, so I will have to personally help change her. Before she walks away she speaks up. She is a metamorphmagus, yes. Yet, does that matter? I say with worry. She shakes her head no, however, it will be much harder for her to shift after the change. You can wait in the garden, I will get you when the ritual is done. She gestures over to a clearing on a small hill. I get up to the clearing and see the clearing is full of violets surrounded by a grove of trees. Seeing I won't have much to do until they heal her, I use magic to heal my injured leg. It will certainly leave a nasty scar, but it will probably work just fine as I was able to reconnect the muscles. I lay down exhausted but am unable to sleep from anxiety, so I stare at the blue sky instead. I raise my hand, letting the rays of light shine through my fingers. What a day, I mutter to myself. Chapter 43, Parley with the Queen. After an hour or so I hear footsteps coming towards me, so I get up to greet them. I see it's the Vila Queen again, but she looks much more tired than before with bags under her eyes. But this still doesn't take from her beauty. Is my sister okay? I ask while approaching her. She gives a small smile. She is. You can come to see her now. I see you healed your leg. Do you want me to heal the scar? I shake my head as I begin to follow her. No, it's a reminder of my almost failure. Her head tilts at me. But you did not fail, she is alive and safe. Probably even better than before. I sigh. If I hadn't known about an illegal portkaya, then she would have died and there is nothing I could have done about it. Not to mention if you had rejected to save her, I wouldn't have been able to heal her magically infected wounds. Hell, maybe even Madame Pomfrey wouldn't. She grabs my shoulder. But those are only what ifs. The reality is that it did happen this way, and she is safe. If we only focus on what could have been, then we miss out on what is. I nod, thanking her for the advice, but step away as her touch makes me feel awkward. As I look to where she is leading me, we approach a large cave in the side of a small cliff. As we enter the cave we walk through another barrier, and what should be a cave opens into a large forest clearing full of what looks like 17th or 18th century houses. She points to the largest one near the middle. That one is mine. Your sister is resting in the guest room. The house was 2 stories made of brick, unlike the rest of the houses which were only 1 story and made of wood. I ignore the stares of the other curious Vila as we make our way to the house. I'm careful to not stare at them back as to not get charmed. Once we enter the house I notice that it has nearly no furnishings, unlike a regular house. There are a few soft chairs around a fireplace with some clocks on the walls, but not much else. Seeing my curious looks she speaks up. We don't furnish our homes here, since the only time we spend inside is to sleep and eat. Your sister is in the room upstairs on the right, across the hall from the master bedroom. She gestures to the stairs before heading into the kitchen. I head upstairs and enter the room she spoke of. As I enter I see Sis Dora sleeping on a bed that is much bigger than her. But I immediately notice that sis looks different, she is really beautiful, not like she wasn't before but even more so now. I guess that's what you can expect now that she is part Vila. I pull up a chair next to her bedside and sit down looking at her sleeping face. Her skin is now much paler than it was before, her hair no longer shifts color and is now just a solid blonde. Her facial features are now a bit sharper than they used to be. Like a more attractive version of Auntie, a terrifying thought. I grab her hand and move a few strands of hair off her face. I'm so sorry I took so long to get there. I grip her hand tighter as I speak. As I put my head down I hear the door open behind me. I turn to see the Vila Queen standing there with a teapot and cups on a platter. Come, we have much to discuss before she wakes up, she says glancing at Dora sleeping. I nod and follow her out. The room we go to is just down the hall, it has 2 sofa benches facing each other with a coffee table between. She sits first and gestures for me to sit at the one across from her. I sit down without meeting her eyes. I really don't know how I could repay you. She waves a hand as she sits back, the teapot floats and begins filling the glasses. You could begin with an explanation, what are you? I doubt a normal boy would be able to turn into a creature like that and be fine wearing a lethafold as a scarf. I look at her surprised she noticed Sin. I stroke Sin since it seems he got anxious as well. I am similar to an animagus, but my form is a Dementor and it makes me possibly immortal. Her brows raise. Your Dementor form is much bigger than what I hear normal Dementors are. To be cursed with immortality is a drastic side effect. Why do you think you are immortal? I ponder hard at her question. I only assumed I would be immortal because of Sid's speculation. What if I'm not? I believe I'm immortal because someone once tried to become like me for immortality but he failed. I don't know for sure if I am, but I believe his assumptions are correct. I am at least partially immortal. She shakes her head. Then you have my condolences. Being immortal truly is a cursed life. It goes against the very nature of things, so you are bound to never have true happiness for long. I would know. Her gaze glazes over for a second as she stares into space. I look at her a bit surprised yet again. You are immortal. Her eyes go back in focus as she gives a small nod and melancholy smile. I am not a true immortal though. My life is bound to all other Vila I have created. Once they all die I can die again, but that is unlikely to happen. Maybe a few thousand years ago before I let my daughters leave the sanctuary, but now, they have so many descendants I am practically forced to live. Life can't be that bad, I say, a bit of sadness in my voice. She looks down. It wasn't for the first 1,000 or so years, but every woman I've ever loved dies. They either die of old age, sickness, or tragedy. I wasn't kidding when I said immortality is a curse. Death haunts you wherever you go. The vampires plaguing this forest are the newest in a long line of threats. Her face goes a bit red from emotions. I've had to protect my sanctuary from armies or men. Those who come for the tales of a land full of beautiful women that could all topple kingdoms. Magical creatures, muggles, wizards, they are all the same, beasts driven by lust. The years of pent-up anger and sadness leak from her voice. I don't know what to say, so I stay silent and look away. Noticing I'm being silent, she straightens herself out and sits up, grabbing a cup of tea. I'm sorry for the drab turn in conversation. I'm not really able to show those kinds of emotions around my daughters, so I may have been a bit pent up. Since I have already made it awkward, I'll make my request now so you can get on your way. I want you to clear out the vampires in the forest. She says, now calmly sipping tea with only a slight blush on her face. You seem extremely powerful, why can't you clear them out? I ask, a bit confused, meeting her eyes. She blushes bright, staring at her tea. Magic spiders. She says in a barely audible whisper. What? I ask with genuine confusion. She looks away from me. They have bred magic spiders, knowing I fear them. My jaw drops. I look at her as she avoids my gaze with a blushed face. I sigh. I was already planning on taking out the vampires, so make another request. I take a sip of tea and my body suddenly feels refreshed. I'm not really surprised, magic and all that. She regains a bit of composure. There isn't much else I need. How about we just call it as you owe me one? I'll call upon you when you are needed, is that okay? I may just be paranoid, but I feel like she has an ulterior motive. I give an affirming nod nonetheless, to which she again smiles, forcing me to look away. She giggles, seeing my actions. Your sister needs a full 8 hours of rest, can you clear out the vampires in that time? Without looking at her smile again, I say, yeah. Do you know how many there are? When I was saving my sister I didn't have time to count them, but it looked over 100. Then it seems they have grown in number. Last time I checked they had 95 vampires and around 30 spiders. While you are gone I will make you a port key to our sanctuary, to make things easy on you should I call on you, she says, standing up. I nod and stand up as well. I'll get a pair for it when I'm in Britain again, but for now I'll head out. It should only take me around 4 hours to clear them. She isn't looking at me anymore and is instead fiddling with a book of some sort. Why so long? Your Dementor form seems very powerful. I'm going to practice some magic, I say matter-of-factly as I walk out the door, not waiting on her since she has already busied herself. After saying goodbye to Sis I walk downstairs and walk out the door. Seeing all the Vila's eyes focus on me I dissipate from embarrassment and appear at the part of the barrier I entered. As I step out of the barrier my shroud surrounds and I vanish. Chapter 44, Extermination. I walk back to the area I found Sis and see the vampires haven't moved. I stand there observing them. We learned a bit about vampires from Quirrell. It's not much, but I know they die when their body is destroyed or their head is cut off. Limbs just regrow, so I have to make sure I finish everyone I start before the next. Much to my surprise a few of them have wands, which means they are wizards who were turned into vampires. Since vampires can't be born naturally and Muggle vampires don't gain magic when transformed. I head over to a group on the outskirts. In a clearing I find the 3 of them are sitting around the dead body of a Muggle. I drop my shroud and point my wand at the only one in the group who is a wizard, Diffindo. His head falls to the ground clean off his body and the other 2 jump up shocked at the events. Before they can yell for help I chain 2 spells, Reducto, Reducto. They are both blasted to ash. I close my eyes to watch the souls. The larger group didn't notice me but the spiders did. There is a group of 6 spiders heading towards me, their legs skittering quickly through the labyrinth of trees. I walk to the opposite end of the clearing and wait for them to enter. I see 6 all-black spiders the size of small horses running my way. They bob through the trees like they don't exist. They really are ugly creatures. The moment they enter the clearing I point my wand at the one leading the pack. Conf Ringo. The first one and the 2 behind it are blown apart in a blaze of fire. The other 3 fall over from the blast but quickly recover. They skitter around me rather than heading towards me this time. They move too fast to hit, so I decide to cheat a little. I raise my arm and fog rolls out of my body in a long tendril-like fashion. With a whip of my arm, the tendril grows long and slams into the spiders, crushing them against the trees. Seeing the spiders are dealt with I close my eyes again. It looks like there are 3 large camps of a little more than 30 vampires. One of the groups split in half and is heading my way. I quickly vanish and prepare to ambush them. This would be way easier if I knew traps or those types of enchantments. That being said, I vastly prefer to fight face to face. I notice that 10 of these vampires are wizards and only 7 of them are Muggle vampires. That will make this one a bit hard. As the vampires pile into the clearing and start inspecting the corpses I point my wand at 3 who are near each other. Conf Ringo Duo. I aim in the center of the group, focusing on the wizards first. Many of them are blown away but 2 of them don't die and are wailing on the ground with missing limbs. I'm a bit surprised they can feel pain as it was never mentioned in the books. The others yell in a language I don't know but I assume it's Bulgarian. Before the other wizards can draw their wands I cast more spells. Diffindo, Diffindo. 2 of the wizards' heads drop to the ground before they can draw their wands. The final 2 wizards shoot spells at me before I can cast again, but Sin whips off my neck and deflects their spells easily. They hit a tree behind me and the bottom of it is blown to pieces. Seemingly waking up from the confusion, the other 7 vampires rush me. Reducto. I fire at the vampire closest to me as he dissolves into ash. Seeing the other 6 vampires running at me nearly shoulder to shoulder I get an idea. I put as much force I can muster into my spell Sectum Sempra. I wave my arm left to right like cleaving a sword. Blood sprays as the heads of all 6 vampires fall to the ground. I nearly fall to my knees from overexertion. The other wizards look dumbfounded but quickly launch another spell at me, noticing my tiredness. Sin again blocks the spells. I whip a hand and a tendril reaches from the shadows, tearing one's head off. The other stands in shock as I grab Sin off my neck and toss him. The wizard seems confused at first but sees that Sin is flying at him. He flings a few spells at Sin but it does nothing as he lands on the vampire's head and hugs his face. The vampire drops his wand as he tries to get Sin off of him, tearing with both hands. He falls to the ground rolling while grabbing at his face to no avail. I walk over to the vampires from my initial attack. They are still on the ground rolling in pain as their limbs slowly regrow. I stand over them with cold eyes as they look up at me in fear. 2 Diffindos to the neck and they both lay there headless as my gaze turns to the wizard still struggling with Sin. I walk over to him, making sure to crush his wand beneath my foot as I stand over him. I weigh my options as I pull Sin off his face, placing him back on my neck. He looks up at me shocked. Do you speak English? I ask in a cold tone. He nods quickly, so I continue. Who was it that hurt the woman who came through here? He looks confused, then realization strikes his face. You mean that Aura bitch, that K*LLED are men who were raiding the village? Ha, that was our leader, edit, and she got what she'd. I raise my leg and stomp on his throat hard. You really shouldn't have called her that. I put my knee on his chest as I clench his throat in my hand, which grows and tightens as I shift into my Dementor form. I can feel him shudder under me as he whimpers a bit, but I am beyond mercy. Perhaps if he had tried to pull away while I was in human form he could escape. But there is no way he can escape me while I'm in my true form. I look him in the eyes with my sockets as I speak. Do you feel regret? My dead voice causes him to shake violently. I don't let him answer as I feast. He tries to speak as he chokes on his own soul that I'm yanking out. His eyes go wide as they start to roll back and his hands that are grabbing my arm go limp. After fully devouring his soul, I look down on his dead body, feeling no remorse for my action. Instead, I feel satisfied that I can help to avenge the wrongdoings done upon my sister, now just to finish exterminating these rats. His soul tasted sour. I assume nature doesn't consider this being human. I check my surroundings and see nearly 50 vampires and 10 spiders are heading my way, but I don't care. I'm looking for the soul that is more powerful than the rest, the leader, the rat who thought he could K*LL my sister, but I can't find it. I can't find it, until I look further away, almost a kilometer out at the very limits of my narrowed sight. I see a powerful soul heading to me at a faster speed than even the spiders. Deep inside I feel the rage churning as I feel a bit of satisfaction knowing, he will die today. Chapter 45, Extermination, 2. Although the leader is fast, the other group will be here much sooner since they are far closer. I face the direction of the pack and let my shroud start seeping out of my body, lining the forest floor in a layer of darkness. The first few of the pack ignore my appearance in the fog. They foolishly charge at me, moving faster than any Muggle professional runner. The 5 spiders, however, seem to sense the danger from the fog and run on the trees. 5 tendrils sprout from the fog leaking from my body. Rushing forward, they impale each of the spiders before they can leap at me. The 9 vampires in front of me finally realize the danger of the fog and try to back away. They quickly realize they can't as the fog on the ground crawls up their legs, locking them in place. The vampires speak in a language I don't know to one another. If I could, I would smile right now. These tendrils feel like natural limbs that I've had all my life. I think this as I use one to wrap around a vampire's head and crush it like a watermelon. The other vampires seemed spooked at how easily their comrade was K*LLED. Before they can retreat from my fog, I quickly use another tendril to sever the heads of the closest vampires. Right on cue, another set of vampires arrive and stare at me angrily. They are a bit smarter and keep out of the black mist clinging to the ground around me. If I was more powerful, I would love to coat the forest, but it seems 20 feet is my max at the moment. I hover over the ground there, staring at the group of maybe 25 wizard vampires with the front 12 pointing their wands at me. A few of them begin slinging spells at me, but they do nothing but blow around my cloak a bit. As I'm about to attack again, one of them steps forward with confidence and points his wand at me. Avada Kedavra. He speaks loudly. I slap away the green streak of magic with one tendril as another of the tendrils rushes forward and pierces the man's throat. Before I can spread my tendril and sever the man's head from his body, another vampire slashes at my tendril with his claw. The tendril fades to fog and reforms immediately back behind me. One of them seems to recognize something and says a word I recognize, Patroness. As soon as I see 3 of them again raise their wands, I begin shifting to my human form. Expecto Patronum. 3 of them chant in sync with their thick accents. One of them falls to the ground screaming as his arm withers and dies. Another falls to the ground vomiting maggots. The last one successfully produces an incorporeal net-like patroness that heads towards me. I shift out of my Dementor form as the white wisp hits me and does nothing but push me a bit. I raise my wand at the vampire who produced the patroness reducto. He stands there with his mouth agape as he gets blown into dust. The other vampires, now realizing the fog is gone, begin to rush me along with the spiders who stayed back. Conf Ringo, Conf Ringo. I quickly cast twice as I back away, *ling a handful of vampires outright. I use my shroud to bring me up to a tree, but the vampires easily start climbing the giant tree. I am nearly exhausted of magic, so I use tendrils to stab down on the climbing spiders and vampires. If I wasn't exhausted, I could probably spew an endless amount of defindos and end all of the vampires here. IK*LL all the spiders, but the vampires' backup has arrived, bringing the number of vampires back up to around 50. So I jump off the giant tree, catching myself with my shroud and hiding once again. As I hit the ground, I look around at the surrounding vampires. They begin to freak out, having lost sight of me. I however close my eyes to find the leader, since he may actually pose a threat to me. The leader is nearly here, so I have to deal with these ones fast. I also need to save my power for my duel against the leader. As I'm thinking of a way to deal with the big group, I notice a reflection in the corner of my eye. A shining sword with a handle of silver and a pommel of ruby is nestled in the crack of a tree. I walk over, still in my shroud, avoiding the screaming vampires who probably think I operate away. As I pull the sword from the tree, I notice there are intricate designs on the crossguard and handle. They are very similar to my wand. I clear those thoughts from my head as I pick the sword up and sneak behind a vampire. As I swing, my cloak fades and I behead the vampire in the view of all the others. I cut his head off like a hot knife to butter. Feeling their gazes, I realize my cloak has faded. With a wave of my arm, I launch my tendrils at the closest vampires as well. The tendrils pierced most of them through the neck, expanding to the sides, cutting their heads clean off. One of them, with quick reactions, managed to dodge the tendril and quickly sends a spell at me. Sin deflected it into another vampire, who burst into flames the second it hit him. I turn to him and swing down hard with the sword. To my surprise, the sword cleaves the tall vampire in half with no effort. It cuts through bone and flesh alike. As the vampire's body splits in half and falls to the floor, the rest begin to rush at me. I back up as to not give them my back and put 2 tendrils on each side of myself. The tendrils are only flailing about, but they have enough power to crack concrete, so the vampires are forced to run at me from the front. They recklessly charge at me, forced to shove together to get at me or fight me one-on-one. Some crafty ones come at me from above or try for behind, but my tendrils make quick work of them. I cleave each of them down with only 1 or 2 swings. My tendrils also *LL a few who try to run away, while Sin is able to reflect all the spells that come at me. Honestly, if I just fight them all like this, I could probably win, but the leader is coming, so I need to hurry. I take a step back after *ling another that is rushing me, and I drop my sword. The sword is swallowed by my cloak as I transform back into my Dementor form. This ends now. More tendrils sprout from my cloak as the whole area is covered in a black fog. This forest now belongs to me. The 20 or so leftover vampires peer up at me in fear as I speak into their heads. A few try and run away, but are quickly skewered by my tendrils before they get far. The ones who don't run begin to fall to the ground like flies. The few women vampires who were a part of the camp are among those who dropped. Many are frozen in fear in the trees. They got cut down swiftly. I feel as if I'm a logger. These are my trees. The fog saps their strength as they lay there, not moving a muscle, but I can still see fear in their eyes. This is probably how your victims felt. I speak to them one last time before giving them their final rest. One by one the tendrils go to each fallen vampire and behead them. As I'm finishing up and stare upon the field of corpses that I've created, I hear footsteps behind me. I can feel it. The darkness is satisfied, but it wants one more. I turn to see a man who looks like a classical vampire, fit with a cape and everything. He has a hard look on his face with sadness in his eyes. He looks up at me, floating above him. You did this. Chapter 46, Extermination, 3. He looks up at me, floating above him. You did this. I don't respond and just watch him walk over and take a knee in front of a corpse. He closes his eyes and speaks softly, "May the ancestors welcome you." He stands up and looks at me again. His eyes show a writhing hatred lingering just behind the sadness. He still, however, gives a curt bow, pulling his cape over his chest as he leans his head down. The vampire stands well over 6 feet tall, but he is nowhere near my 12-foot stature. He has a handsome face with slicked back black hair and pale white skin. A true Dracula wannabe. My name is Edit Marius von Bogdan II. I formally request a duel to the death as a member of the House of Bogdan and leader of this clutch. His face stays stone as he speaks, but his eyes say many things. You never had the chance to leave alive anyway. He grits his sharp teeth as he rushes me at speeds I barely see. I just watch him approach, calmly waiting for him to hit me. His hands turn into sharp claws as he swipes hard at my chest area. I let him hit me. His strike pushes me back, but nothing happens to me. If I could smile, I would. I left my fog on my chest so when he struck it would latch to him. I happily watch as my fog rolls up his arm, sapping strength from him. To my surprise, he decisively cuts off his own hand. He leaps back away from me as his hand regrows at a rapid and visible pace. It is far faster than any of the other vampires I have slain today. He looks up at me with deciphering eyes. You're far too large to be a Dementor, and your powers are also strange. What are you? You're death. My dry dead voice speaks into his mind as I rush at him with 4 tendrils around me ready to pierce. He dodges quickly to my left, but I was ready for it. A 5th tendril sprouts from my fog and pierces his throat, expanding quickly to sever his head. I am a bit sad I didn't KLL him with my own hands, but it was more efficient this way. But something unexpected happens. His body reaches out and grabs the severed head. Once secured, it runs away with the head like a thief. I was caught off guard, so I let him run. He stopped at the other end of the clearing near the massive amount of corpses. He positions his head over his destroyed neck as it began to repair itself. Rivulets of blood reached out and connect his head to his body as it quickly healed. He rolls his neck around, stretching as he speaks again. Those types of things don't work on true blood vampires like I. I'm honestly shocked at what just happened, but I can't show it on my rotting face. Then we will see how you fare having your soul torn out. He ignores my statement and raises an arm to me. Since physical won't work, I'll try this. White wisps begin to leak from his hand as they take the shape of a large bat the size of a dog. Seeing he produced a patroness, I quickly transform out of my Dementor form. I raise my wand Expecto Patronum, and with a flick wisps burst from my wand, forming the shape of my patroness. My Nunda begins chasing the large bat, like a cat chasing a bird. This puts me in a predicament. I can't shift back to Dementor form without undoing my patroness. But if I do that, his patroness will be able to hold me down. Edit looks shocked. You're just a child. But looking up at the giant Nunda patroness in front of him, he looks even more shocked. Looking back at me, he speaks, but now you can bleed. He runs at me again with newfound vigor. I'm still tired from fighting all the others, so I can't cast much. I have to use my spells wisely. I use my cloak to fly up a large tree and look down at him. Where I was once standing has a hole in the ground, and Edit is looking up at me with anger on his face. I look down at the hole with a small smirk. He had stomped the ground hard enough that half his foot was in it, and cracks webbed over 5 feet away from the hole. He pulls his foot out of the hole and crouches down. He grits his fangs as he launches himself at me, leaving more cracks on the ground from where he jumped. I smile at his foolish action, since he won't be able to dodge me in the air. My fog quickly forms into a thick arm. As I slam my arm down, so too does my new arm of fog. To my surprise, it misses, and Edit seems to have vanished. I look around quickly with my eyes closed to find and see he is above me. I open my eyes to look up and see a bat flying above me. I point my wand at it as I use my cloak to float off the tree. Flipendo, I hit one of his wings and he comes tumbling down, hitting the tree on his way. As he is about to hit the ground, he shifts into his vampire form and lands on all fours, causing his cloak to flutter. How dramatic, I mutter. He looks up at me, ignoring my words, and pounces at me like a cat. I send my arm of fog at him, forcing him to jump away. I aim at where he will land with my wand and cast Orbis. As he lands, the ground begins to suck him into it, causing him to struggle violently. But his struggle does nothing. The ground is like quicksand and devours him up to his neck. Fury fills his eyes as he looks up at me with a hatred I've never seen before. I look back and see that my patroness is in the process of tearing his apart, and I smile. I turn back and walk up to him. It's your lost time to die. I smile and am about to shift into my Dementor form, but he speaks first. Wait. The fury fades a bit as he looks up at me. At least tell me why you did it. Why did you KLL my family? His face is still cold, but he appears close to giving up. Because you tried to KLL mine first. No one touches my family. I look at him with cold eyes and begin to transform. His face is flabbergasted but quickly turns back to rage. You mean you slaughtered my kin, my family, over someone I almost KLLED? His face twists in anger as he yells. He is about to yell again, but I grab him by the neck, pulling him out of the ground. My fog covers his body, leaving him limp, looking at me with unwillingness and anger. My cold voice rings in his ears as my grip on his neck tightens. My sister's life is worth any number of your kin. Now die knowing you are the reason for their suffering. I put my face up to his and begin wrenching the soul from his body. He is trying with everything he has to fight back, but it is hopeless. He begins gagging as his soul reaches his throat, tears falling from his eyes. As I finish consuming his soul, I feel a similar sense of fullness that I got from Sirius. I drop his limp corpse on the ground and transform into my human form. It would be smart to go through everything the vampires had and take anything useful. Chapter 47, The Plunder. Most of the vampires are in clothes that look like they have been worn for months with no cleaning. Meanwhile, the clothes on Edit are immaculate except for the cuts that I caused. The only thing I find on Edit's body is an ornately crafted golden locket, on the inside is a painting of a red sun. I decide to take it, I drop it inside my shroud without much thought and move on. I walk over to the first camp taking my time since I still have a few hours till Sis wakes up. The first camp has a few enchanted tents, 5 small tents, and 1 large one. The small ones seem to be living quarters for the vampires, with only lines of cots. I take a few cots just in case I need them in the future. The largest tent has a wide open area with a kitchen, a large living room, and a dining room with a massive table that could seat 100 people comfortably. The living room furniture and dining room table and chairs all looked brand new, so I take them all to help upgrade the place for the villa. The kitchen has bags of blood in it and already butchered and prepared meat. This place is more like a muggle's house than a vampire's den. After seeing there was nothing else I wanted, I moved on to the second camp. This camp also had the same setup. 5 small tents and 1 large one, again the small ones are living quarters for the vampires. But I feel something off as I enter the big tent. As I enter, a putrid smell enters my nostrils. I quickly cover my nose with sin and look around. I almost vomit from the sight. Nearly 50 muggle corpses are hung upside down by meat hooks being drained of all their blood. They each have a large pan underneath them to catch the blood. A few of them appear to have died only recently. If I had the time I would prefer to bury them all, but I don't have the time. But I won't be leaving them here to rot like the corpses of the vampires. I close my eyes and focus to make sure none of them are still alive, then I begin. Incendio, incendio. I start a fire at each side of the tent, then leave and watch it burn. Once it is done burning, I head to the last camp. The last camp is set up differently, there are only 3 tents, 2 small and 1 giant tent, much larger than the last ones. The grass in this area is also well kept and the clearing has trees bent over it to give shade. As I walk into the first tent, I notice it's full of supplies, like rope, magic lights, and even water for some reason. I take everything useful into my moleskin pouch and walk out to the next small tent. This tent has living quarters, but they are much nicer than the cots in every other tent. The bed is well made and it has a weapons rack on the side. There are multiple dressers filled with clothes on both sides, but nothing of value to me. I step out and make my way into the final tent of the whole place. As I step inside, I am greeted by marble flooring and a giant stairway leading to a second floor. I walk around the first floor to find a modern kitchen with actual human food. A refrigerator, stove, sink, and even a breakfast nook adorned this kitchen inside this tent. The fridge was full of packaged foods and drinks, which I happily took some. The rest of the downstairs was a living area with a magic music box and a large sofa. I take both of them. I'm amazed at how much my cloak can store, but after I put the sofa in I feel heavy. As if I just put on a set of weights around my chest. I decide that's enough and head upstairs. The upstairs consists of a bedroom with a large bed that looks like it was made for a king. The bed has intricate designs on the wood and well-made cotton and silk sheets on it. I immediately put it in my cloak as well. As soon as the bed enters my cloak, the weight on my chest triples and I fall to my knees panting. With a wave of my arm, 8 cots spew from my shadows and the weight is relieved. I rub my chest to dull the aching as I take note of the limit for future reference. On the other side of the room is a rather large body mirror on the wall, which is weird because vampires can't use mirrors. It's roughly 2 meters tall and 3 meters across. As I step up to it, I realize it's not a regular mirror, it's instead a faux glass. To my surprise, I see the silhouettes of 5 figures. When could I have ever made so many enemies, I think to myself. I hold up my hand as I count them off. Voldemort, wait, I don't think I've made any other enemies. Another shocking revelation is the clearest 2 are silhouettes I don't even begin to recognize. I can tell it's a woman and a man, but other than that I can't tell much. Meanwhile, the least clear silhouette doesn't even look human shape, more like a blob that doesn't touch the ground. This piece of faux glass is more than likely insanely expensive. With a reluctant sigh, I spew out the last 2 cots I was carrying and take it into my cloak. I also notice a chest sitting at what used to be the foot of the bed. It is full of Romanian leu, I don't know how much, but I still take it all into my moleskin bag anyway. I also notice a small book on the nightstand next to where the bed used to be. The cover of the book says Book of the Chosen Son, and unexpectedly it's a diary. It details the full life story of Edit, the true blood vampire I just *LLED. His mother is Indian and that's why he has such an off name. I guess that makes sense. He was considered the chosen one because he was born during the day of the Red Sun. That is a day that comes once every 500 years and is when vampires are at their most powerful. He was raised being trained by the best, yet he was K***led by a kid, quite sad really. He was forced to flee Transylvania when his kin were have found to be K***ling muggles and not drinking animal blood as the pact states. The ministry in Romania started slaughtering them, so they fled here to Bulgaria and settled in this forest. But after a few raids on the local village, they were located by the Bulgarian ministry and were forced to hide here. After reading about his life, I start to head back to the Vila Sanctuary. I'm a bit upset that I was not able to save anyone there, but it can't be helped, I got my revenge. Chapter 48, Sleeping Beauty. After a long walk, I reach the barrier again, which opens by itself once I get in front of it. I take my time to reach the cave where the living area is. I say hello to all the curious Vila without stopping to answer their questions, since the queen is waiting for me. From afar I see the queen standing in front of her home with a smile. Have you taken care of them? She asks as I near the house. I nod. I got a lot of stuff for you as well, they won't need it anymore. She smiles brightly. Thank you for that, your sister should wake up by the time dinner is ready. Let's go inside and talk. She turns and walks into her home. I follow behind her, avoiding all the gazes of the other Vila, only giving them a smile. As I reach the door, she turns back to me. You can leave anything you wanted to give to us out front. I nod. Okay, but it is a lot. I swipe my arm out in an overdramatic fashion. Fog seeps from my body and the area in front of the house is flooded by a mass of black fog. The fog slowly fades as it reveals all the things I took from the vampires. As I'm removing the furniture from my space, I realize that the sword is gone. Although it was an amazing sword, I don't really mind that it's gone, it probably had a return charm on it or something. Looking at all the stuff I took out, she looks astonished. It seems like we will need to build a dining hall. You go inside, I'll handle all the stuff you brought. She steps out of the way and gestures me past. I nod and head up to the room my sister is sleeping in. I sit in the chair next to her bed and notice her face is even more beautiful than when I left. Since I'm still exhausted from fighting, I lay my head on the bed and close my eyes. I wake up to the feeling of someone stroking their hands through my hair. I look up and see Sis is now awake and has my head on her lap. I feel my face heat up as I sit up in the chair. She smirks at my blushed face. Good to see my little savior is finally awake. I blush even more. How are you feeling? Any pain? She shakes her head. No, in fact, I feel better than ever. Like I could take on an army without getting a scratch on me. I sigh. Please don't try taking on an army again. She laughs a bit. So you know about the vampires? Yeah, there were a lot of them, but the leader was the only real threat, I think. Yes, he was. I hear a voice come from behind me. I turn to see the Vila Queen walking in with 3 cups of tea on a platter. Here she puts the platter with the tea in between Sis and me. We both take a cup and Sis speaks up. Thank you, Anna, you've been a great host. She smiles. Not a problem, how could I refuse such a cute young man? With the way he nearly broke down my door crying, I'm sure even the dead would have gotten up to help. Sis giggles as the queen glances over at me with a wink. If my face could blush anymore, I'm sure it would be bleeding. I try to ignore the harassment and speak as calmly as I can. So your name is Anna, it's a pretty name. I am Soren Black, sorry for the late introduction. Anna smiles. My real name is Zornitsa, Anna is my second name and what I go by. It's nice to meet you, Soren, but I'm going to have to ask you to leave the room for a bit. She looks over at Sis and they nod to each other. We need a little time for girls' talk. I nod and walk out of the room, trying to calm my blushing face. From behind me, I can hear them laughing. How did those two become acquainted so fast? I think to myself. I take my tea and go sit in the living room staring at the fireplace thinking. I am mainly thinking about the possible 5 people I saw in the faux glass. The possibilities quickly run through my head. My first, and best, assumption is that DADA had a charm on his body that told who was K***led by. But I don't know if that kind of charm would work while I'm in my Dementor form. If that's the case, then the 2 close figures were most certainly DADA's parents. That would make sense since he is the chosen one and all. I know for certain that one of the other figures is Voldemort. I wonder how many Horcruxes Voldemort has. I know the theoretical limit is 7, but I'm not sure if Voldemort could make 7. Sid was one of the most powerful dark wizards to exist and he managed 7, so I will assume Voldemort did as well. Wait. I just realized the lump on Harry's soul was a lot like the one on Quirrell's. Fuck, is Harry a living Horcrux as well? My train of thought is ruined as the realization dawned on me about Harry. I cup my face in my hands as I try and think of ways to destroy a Horcrux. I don't think Sid's books ever said how to destroy a Horcrux, they only ever mentioned how to make them. That really doesn't help me. I know it would take something very powerful, any smart wizards can make it impervious to all magic. As I'm thinking I hear footsteps coming down the stairs, so I sit back up and look. Sis and Anna are coming down and Sis has new clothes on. Sis looks at me as she is coming down. What has you so concerned? I don't think I am in that bad of condition. I wave my hand. No, it's something else I just realized, something I don't know how to deal with just yet. This time Anna speaks. HOH? Why don't you tell us, maybe we can help you out. I smile, I may have to get help but I'm not sure right now, I'll try and figure it out alone for now. Sis seems curious. Sounds pretty serious if you're giving it so much thought. Well, if you need me I'm here. Anna puts her hands together. Dinner will be ready in a few minutes, you two can go sit in the dining room while I grab everything. Sis and I walk into the dining room and sit across from one another. As I sit down I look at Sis with seriousness. Sis, can you tell me what led up to this and how you ended up in Bulgaria? She gives a nod. Well, it all started with Moody. Chapter 49, Departure. Well, it all started with Moody. When I first became apprenticed to him he would just give me small tasks to do, not really teaching me anything. It was usually oral paperwork or the like. It was fine because he would teach me new things when I completed them well. But starting a little over a month ago his attitude shifted. He started becoming angry at me easily, he started taking me on oral missions with him. Then a few days ago he said we had a mission in Bulgaria. Some vampires had been harassing local villages of Muggles and we had to clear them out. The Bulgarian Muggles have been in an uproar since the fall of their old nation and it trickled down to the ministry, spreading them thin. The Bulgarian ministry had personally asked for Moody since he had K*LLED so many vampires in the war. Once we got here there was a raid happening in a village just outside the forest. So Moody and I took care of the vampires who were K*ling the Muggles. It went well, I got a lot of experience out of it, as well as my first K*LL. I look confused. If Moody was with you how did you get almost K*LLED? Ow! She flicks my forehead. Hush up, I'm getting there. So, once we had taken care of the vampires Moody said it would be best to just go clear out their camp fast. So we went to find the camp. It wasn't that hard, they weren't doing a good job of hiding it. We managed to take out a lot since there were so many and only 2 of us. Moody was taking on 3 or 4 wizards at a time without trouble. I dealt with the normal ones that tried to rush him. It went well until the leader showed up. He gave a self-introduction and a typical villain monologue. Moody wasn't having it and sliced off his head. Much to our surprise he picked up his own head and put it back on. The second he saw this Moody disapparated, leaving a very confused me. I was going to run as well but the leader, Edit, rushed me and I was forced to fight him. He was too fast, I wasn't even able to land a spell on him. He injured me pretty bad and I fled into a cave I found while running. I used an emergency concealing barrier Moody gave to me on the entrance to the cave. All I remember after that is holding onto your coin tight and eventually a dark figure came and saved me. I start to sweat profusely at the mention of a dark figure. With a forced smile, I speak. So you don't remember me picking you up? I took an illegal portkaya to get here then operate to your location using the seeker coin as the marker. I'm glad you're safe now. She gives me a beautiful smile. I would never imagine that my little brother would be such a heroic figure. It feels like this time last year I was teaching you your first conf Ringo. Oh, wait, it was. I smile at this. You should report Moody to the ministry for leaving you to die. Even if he doesn't get punished you'll still get a new person to study under. Sis nods. I was thinking that as well. I don't believe I'll be safe studying under Moody, his mood swings are too heavy. I also can no longer put my faith in him to help me, so we won't be working together again. I nod as I hear the Queen walking and placing bowls and silverware in front of us. Thank you. She just smiles as she grabs a pot of stew and fills all 3 bowls. She sits down at the head of the table close to Dora and me. Glad I have company. I always eat alone, except for the few times I have guests. We eat dinner together and I learn that Sis and Anna have gotten very close in the short period of time I was asleep. The food was great. I suppose the Queen has had a lot of time to practice cooking since she is immortal. After we ate the Queen took us on a tour of the sanctuary and we got to meet a few of the other villa. For the most part, they want nothing to do with me but treated Sis rather well. I don't really care about their rude behavior since they probably have a good reason to not like men. I would probably have a strong distaste for men too if I was forced to hide in K*LL because of constant fear. Some are curious though and I briefly entertain their questions. After it turns dark, Sis got to stay in the guest room and I slept on the bed I brought. The Queen convinced us to stay the night so she can get the portkaya done for us. When we woke up the next morning, Anna was already making breakfast for us. We eat together again and got ready to leave. To my surprise, Sis didn't have her wand on her, it snapped while fighting Edit. According to the Queen, she no longer needs a wand as Vila are naturally better at wandless magic. As if to prove her point to me, Sis casts a few charms without using a wand, showing me that it is indeed easy for her. I roll my eyes, show off. She smiles at me, feels like someone is jealous of his big sister. The Queen smiles as well. You know, I've never tried to turn a male before. Maybe you can be the first male, Vila. Her beautiful lips curve into a teasing smile. I shiver thinking of a long-haired feminine version of myself. No thank you. I would very much rather stay a male. They both laugh as the Vila Queen steps towards me and holds out a beautifully crafted golden goblet. This is the portkaya. The magic will not activate until you let go of the goblet. Once you let go, it will be activated and you only need to touch it to be sent here to the sanctuary. Since you both stayed last night, that gave me the time to make it two-way so you won't have to make your own when you get home. I nod. Thank you very much. Don't forget to call on me if you need anything at all. Sis nods and says her goodbyes as well. She holds her hand out to me. As I take her hand, we both disappear and appear in front of the Bulgarian Ministry of Magic. I wait outside since I'm not supposed to be here and may get in trouble. So I just sit outside holding the goblet as she talks to them. She comes out and tells me that the portkaya to London will be available to take in a few minutes. The portkeys were housed in a normal-looking pub in a building right next to the ministry. After taking the key, we apparate in front of our house and wonder what the heck to tell Auntie Dromeda. Chapter 50, Home once again. I look up at Sis Dora. What do we tell Auntie? I ask tentatively. She puts a hand on my back as we walk to the door. Anything but the truth. I open the door first to see Auntie Dromeda on the sofa crying and Uncle Ted rubbing her back to calm her down. My heart drops at the sound, but I don't show it. Auntie. Sis and I are back. I holler from the entrance into the living room. Auntie and Uncle look up from their crying to see me and Sis standing right behind me. They both get up and rush at Sis. I step out of the way and Auntie nearly tackles Sis onto the ground with a hug. If it weren't for Uncle lifting them both up into a bear hug, they would have fallen. Seeing how hard they are crying, the ministry must have told them Sis was K*LLED in action. I smile at the cuteness of the family moment. Sure enough, Auntie speaks through sobs. The ministry told us that you were dead. I was so scared, I thought we lost you. At this, Sis starts crying as well and hugs them back harder. I just stand there and watch as they hug it out. After a minute or two, Uncle Ted, let's go honey, let her tell us what happened. He says, gently rubbing her back. Auntie nods and pulls away, wiping the tears off her face. Let's sit down, I'm sure it's quite the story. She begins to walk to the sofa holding Sis's hand, making her follow. They sit on the sofa on either side of Sis and I sit on the love seat, curious as to the story Sis would come up with. She takes a deep breath and begins her story. The short version is, we were supposed to be clearing out vampires, but Moody ran away, leaving me alone. He fought the leader of the vampires and saw he couldn't win, so he ran away. Before I could run away, they managed to heavily injure me. Luckily I was saved by a village and they gave me a valuable potion to keep me alive. It's the reason for the changes in my body. When I managed to get back to London, I met with Soren, who left school early again. She says with a rather convincing face. Both Auntie and Uncle look furious. That bastard. I ought to chuck him into a vampire den without his wand for that. Auntie yells, clenched fist in the air. My eyes go wide. That's a perfect punishment. I should do that. After a long sigh, Auntie unclenches her fists and holds Dora's face in her hands. With your face like this, you are almost as beautiful as me when I was young. She says with a soft smile, completely betraying her arrogant words. After Sis manages to calm them down, Auntie and Sis head to the ministry to report what happened. Auntie went along saying that she didn't want her out of her sight for a week. While they are gone, Uncle and I decide to clean up the house to make Auntie happy. Arthur even helps out a bit, and by that I mean he sleeps near us as we work. Whenever we change rooms, he will walk into that room, find a spot, and fall asleep. Uncle Ted and I head out to the back and I am shocked to see the large fenced-in area he has built for lure. I look around and the fence goes hundreds of feet, even extending into the woods a bit. Thanks, Uncle Ted, it means a lot, I say looking at the huge fence with a smile. He rubs his nose a bit embarrassed. It's not often you request things, so I wanted to do it well. I'm Muggleborn, so I built things with my father when I was younger, it was a fun project. I used magic on parts that required multiple people, but most of it is by hand. Wow, this is huge for being handmade. How long did it take? I ask with wide eyes. Well, I started the second I got your letter about the unicorn and I finished 2 days ago. So it took quite a while. He says, looking proudly at the stables and fence. After a few seconds of silence, Uncle Ted turns around. Think of it as an early birthday present. He speaks with a smile as he walks away. My eyes go wide as I realize my birthday is soon. I have never celebrated it, not even once. I remember I got an earful last year when Auntie realized I didn't tell her my birthday and it had already passed. After everything with Moody was investigated and quickly found guilty. He was stripped of his wand and was forbidden from using magic. He was also stripped of his honors as a hero of the war for it. If it were not for Mr. Weasley protesting dementia on his behalf, he would have been tossed into Azkaban. I really wanted him to go to Azkaban, then I could simply order a Dementor to take him to a forest of vampires. But nothing can be easy, I guess. I tried hard to find his address, but apparently, the home address of all the Aurors are kept secrets for their protection. I didn't blame it on the Dementor I assigned to protect her, since it had no way to follow her through a portcullis. However, I did make sure it was even more strict about protecting her while she is on the Isles. I spent the summer sending letters and practicing my charms since I wanted to get better. My offensive power heavily outweighs my charms and transfiguration, so I focus on charms first. Then later in the summer, I'll focus on transfiguration to make McGonagall proud. Sis said the ministry would get her a new teacher by the end of the year since she isn't out of her training period as a new Auror. Hopefully, it isn't another coward or weak-minded individual. Since Auntie Dromeda learned I was friends with Ron, and kind of the twins, she planned a trip to the Burrow. That's what they call their home, the Burrow. I guess it sounds quaint. I managed to convince Auntie to just invite people over for my birthday instead, and we could visit the Burrow later. Not that I don't want to go to their house, but being in a cramped place with the twins and Ron sounds rough. We sent out invitations to my birthday party, which got me kind of excited. I only invited 4 families, but I didn't mind if none of them came. I mainly just wanted my family to be there. Ron's mother replied instantly and said they would be coming. Hermione's parents said they would come as well, but it was a far drive, so they may be late. Neville's grandmother replied saying he would not be attending, and to no one's surprise Harry didn't reply. I don't say that because Harry is AD*CK, but because he has not replied to anyone since the start of summer. Chapter 51, The Flying Car. After the weeks passed of no communication from Harry, we began to figure it had something to do with his aunt and uncle. With that in mind, we have decided to go kidnap him for my birthday. Fred and George will drive their dad's flying car to pick me up, then we will go and get Harry together. On the day Fred and George are coming to get me, I see Sis walking out of her room dressed in her black and red Aura robes. They are her trainee Aura robes that she never seems to wear. Where are you heading, Sis? I ask, surprising her a bit. She turns around, greeting me with a smile. Good morning, Soren. I am getting assigned a new teacher today. That's why I have to wear my official Aura robes today. She says, gesturing at the robes. Do you know who you are getting assigned to? She shakes her head. No, I haven't been told. However, I heard the person requested to take me after hearing about what happened with Moody. I nod. Well, I hope everything works out. She smiles as I'm about to walk away. She speaks up. And what about you? You're never dressed properly before noon. You doing something today? I smirk a bit. I told Auntie I'm going to the Burrow, but the Weasleys and I are going to pick up Harry for my birthday party tomorrow. Don't tell Auntie though, they are taking their dad's car to come to get me. She rolls her eyes and walks away. Well, don't get caught, I'm not taking any blame for you again. She waves to me without looking back. I just smile and head to my room. Speaking of my room, it looks a lot different now. Rather than just a bed and a nightstand, I now have the giant faux glass on my wall parallel from my bed. I'm very thankful that I'm rich, it would be hard to explain this mirror otherwise. I also have the wizard's chess set on a round table with 2 chairs across from each other. I also have a bookshelf full to the brim with books about mostly random things. Some of the books pertain to the dark arts, those are the ones I got to research Horcruxes to help Harry. Probably the best addition of the room is a bar hanging from the ceiling. Hanging about a foot low from the ceiling is a bar on a swivel where you can see Shy hanging out 60% of the time. He likes to just sit on the bar and spin sometimes, but more often than not he just stares. If he was more social he would be pretty adorable, not that he isn't already adorable. The other 40% of the time you can find him perched in Lure's stable watching her. I sit on my bed staring into the faux glass wondering who the other figures are. Since returning to England all the figures in the mirror have blurred, which is good I suppose. As I'm sitting in one of the armchairs thinking, I hear a knock coming from my window. I open my window to see Ron hanging from the back seat of a flying car. My mouth drops as I see a beaten-up old blue flying vehicle for the first time. Well, don't take all day, get in, Fred speaks up from the driver's seat. George pops his head into the back seat. We got places to be, people to kidnap. Ron puts his hand out for me to grab. I take his hand getting on the windowsill as leverage. I close the window behind me as I get into the slightly unstable flying car. As I close the car door I look over at Ron who is looking past me into my room. Is that the new edition of Wizard's Chess? He asks excitedly. Yeah, I got it for Christmas, I answer while buckling up. Wicked. We should play tomorrow. He appears way more excited than I've ever seen him. Although I didn't get him the best set of Wizard's Chess, his is still pretty good. I rub the back of my head. Sure, I'm not very good though. I remember you played a lot with Harry over the break, right? You both can just play my set tomorrow. George chimes in. Don't worry Soren, he isn't good at things other than Wizard's Chess, so you are still ahead. I chuckle as Ron argues back that's not true. I got an E in herbology. Fred and George both laugh. I change the topic with an awkward smile. Did you get to practice Quidditch yet? Ron looks a bit embarrassed as Fred and George begin to laugh. You should see it, Soren. The ball is like a magnet to Ron's head. He was born to be a keeper. I laugh at the thought of Ron taking a quaffle to the head. Thanks for the ride by the way, I'm sure you guys will get in trouble home though. Not a problem, they both speak at the same time. Just a small favor for the savior of Gryffindor, Fred says with a cheeky smirk. Savior of Gryffindor? I ask. George turns around. Yet, without the points you got there is no way we would have won the House Cup. Before I can reply Fred speaks up. You should hear Percy talking about you, you would think you saved him from a burning building. Says you will easily become the next prefect. But I also lost us a ton of points, I would think that's a bit of a negative, I say a bit confused. George shrugs. We also lost a ton of points. He looks at Fred and back at me, but everyone seems to still love us. It's pretty great, isn't it? Fred and George exchange a grin as I groan while rolling my eyes and don't reply. The drive after that isn't very quiet with the two in the front goofing off. I would be lying if I said it wasn't entertaining though. I can understand how these two are so popular. To my amazement, the car had an invisibility feature. I mean, it makes sense since they can't have muggles seeing it. But I was under the impression invisibility charms are very difficult. I'm sure their father worked a lot on this car. After a little less than an hour, we make it to Harry's house. Harry's home is a very ordinary home you could find in any suburb of London. As we got right next to Harry's window, I lean out of the car and knock on it. After only a second or two, the window flew open with a surprised and excited Harry. What are you guys doing here? He stares in amazement at the car much as I did. We are here to save you. Ron says from over my shoulder as the twins laugh. Harry's face is filled with happiness as he turns around and starts to pack clothes quickly. He hands me Hedwig, who is locked inside a cage but seems happy to see us nonetheless. Alohomora. The cage unlocks as she hops out onto my arm with a happy screech. I smile. Fred maneuvers the car to let Harry put his trunk in the boot of the car. After he tosses in the trunk and closes the boot, I reach out my arm and help him in. Once he closes the door, I tap Fred on the shoulder. Let's go. Chapter 52, Rescue Operation Complete. Once Harry is in the car, my curiosity gets the better of me and I have to ask, so, how well did the pacifying charm work? Harry ponders a bit. The charm worked, kind of. But they are just nasty people, they even locked Hedwig in that cage. She was only allowed out for an hour a day. Ron chimes in. Is that why you haven't been replying to our letters? Harry looks confused. Your letters? I haven't gotten any letters all summer, I thought you guys forgot about me. Ron and I look at each other confused. Hermione, Ron and I have sent at least 10 letters to you. Hermione wanted to send more to make sure that you're okay, but I was against it. Wouldn't want your aunt and uncle to get annoyed at all the letters. I say, looking back at Harry. Then what happened to the letters? Harry questions. Fred speaks up with a sly grin. Maybe someone's targeting you, Harry. George turns around and makes ghost noises. Wow, maybe it's a ghost. I roll my eyes as everyone else laughs, but he is right, Harry, there could be someone targeting you. But who would want to target me? I don't think I have done anything. Harry says, confused. I gesture towards his scar. There are a few I could think of. Ron and Harry gasp. You think it could be you know who? Harry asks. Of course not, but it could be one of his leftover lackeys. Ron and Harry nod at my words. George turns around again. What's with all this talk? We are kidnapping Harry for your birthday, let's have fun. I smile. You're right. I look at Ron and Harry. I got a cool game for when we get to my house. For the rest of the car ride, we just talked about our summers so far. I brag to them about Lure's new stables and Shy's new perch hanging from my ceiling. Harry says he was studying the whole time since the only books he had were textbooks. I tell him we can stop by Diagon Alley tomorrow morning if he wanted to, but he declined. So we decide to go later this summer and he will just read my books until then. Once we got back to my house, Fred and George head back to the burrow for fear of getting caught if they are out too long. They say they don't want to hang out with kids for any longer than promised, but I think that is just an excuse. I bring Harry and Ron with me downstairs to ask Auntie if they can stay the night. I've heard parents are more likely to say yes if their child isn't the one to ask. Therefore I waited until now to tell the truth. It is better to ask forgiveness than permission, right? When we get downstairs, Auntie and Uncle are at the table talking to each other. As Uncle Ted notices us, he gives me a knowing smile and motions me over as he goes to get up. Auntie just watches confused as he just walks away mid-conversation, whistling into the afternoon sun. She turns around and sees the three of us as realization dawns on her face. The realization comes first, then comes a glare at me. Mind telling me what's going on? She asks me. Harry speaks up. Ma'am, Ron and I were wondering if we could stay the night tonight. She smiles at Harry. Of course you dears can. She looks at me, but first I'll need an explanation. She begins her interrogation. This is your friend Harry, correct? I nod. He lives in London, correct? I nod again. Now tell me, how in the world did a 12-year-old get to London and back before lunchtime? I look her dead in the eyes with raised eyebrows and a straight face through the power of friendship and magic. I nod my head as I speak with sincerity. She pulls on my cheeks. Ow, stop it, Auntie, I'm just kidding. Well, continue, the truth now. She says, still tugging on my cheeks. We took Mr. Weasley's flying car to London to pick up Harry, I say, slightly slurred since she is pulling my cheeks. She lets go of my face and leans back into her chair as crisis dawns on her face. Oh no, my boy's only 12 and already a car thief. I raise my finger. I'm only 11 until tomorrow. I quickly regret my words as he smacks the side of my head softly. That is not better. Her glare is grade A annoyed. Ron speaks up. Technically my older brothers took the car and we only went with them. Ron looks at me as I give him 2 thumbs up. Good one, I mouth to him. Auntie sees my thumbs up and smacks the back of my head. She rubs her temples as she thinks. Seeing her in thought, Harry speaks up. He only did it to save me from my aunt and uncle. I give him 2 thumbs up as well. Also good, I mouth again, not learning my lesson the first time. She sighs. You're lucky it's your birthday tomorrow. You will have to help cook dinner tonight though. I nod as all 3 of us run back upstairs. As we get back in my room, I begin to show them what I bought a few days ago. From my moleskin bag, I pull out a large TV that was annoying to hold and a SNES. Ron looks confused, but Harry's eyes go wide. Is that a Super Nintendo Entertainment System? Dudley has one of those. I heard they are super expensive. Ron looks even more confused as I reply, Harry, both you and I are rich, did you forget that? He looks a bit embarrassed. Yeah, a bit actually. Ron finally speaks up. So, what is it? Sorry, forgot you're from a full wizard family. This is a SNES, a Muggle video game machine, and this is a TV, it makes moving pictures a lot like magic. Here, I'll set it up and show you how to use it. After that, I spend an hour of my life trying to explain how a television works when I myself don't know much. Don't get me started on trying to explain what video games are. I got Ron to start playing Legend of Zelda, A Link to the Past. When I finally look back at Harry, he is just staring into the faux glass. As I approach, Harry speaks up. What are these figures I see? I sigh. This is called faux glass, it shows you the outlines of your enemies. The more clear they appear, the closer they are. How many do you see? I raise a brow in curiosity. Harry nods as he stares into the mirror. I see only two. But they are quite blurry. One of the two looks like it is somehow split, malformed. Why do you have this? He looks up at me in confusion. I shrug. Well, I mean, I didn't know how many enemies I had until I looked at it. So I decided it was best to keep an eye on them. Seeing he didn't move and was staring into the mirror again, I grab his shoulder. Come on, I can't watch Ron die in another dumb way. It's your turn to play. He nods as he peers at the mirror one last time. Chapter 53, A Happy Birthday, After beating them an innumerable amount of times, I eventually go downstairs to help Uncle Ted cook dinner. Harry and Ron just stay in my room playing Super Mario Kart while I'm gone. They offered to help but I turned them down. Ron turned out to be way better at Mario Kart than at Zelda. By the time I get back, they both have practice and I can't catch a break. Blue shell after blue shell after blue shell. I think I am developing a trauma at this point. The next morning I wake up far before everyone else and immediately feel a cold chill on my neck. I quickly get up and head outside as this is the signal I told my dementors to use to notify me of danger. Odd signal, I know. As I sneak past Harry and Ron, I close the door softly and check my surroundings. Seeing the coast is clear, I shift into my dementor form. I phase through the wall and head to two dementors floating above the house waiting. I notice there is an unconscious house elf being held by the bigger dementor. I turn to face the bigger dementor. Did you feast? My dry voice echoes out. It shakes its head, understanding my words. This surprises me a tiny bit since they never really responded before. They just did as they were told, but as Sid said, they did become smarter with more interaction. Give it to me. The dementor lowers its head and tosses over the house elf as if it were a sack of potatoes. I wave them off with a hand. Continue your jobs, I will deal with this. At my words, the two turn and fly back to their hiding spots. I look at the house elf with a scrupulous gaze as I carry him into the forest past Lure's pen. I land in an opening and shift back to human as I toss the elf towards a tree. My shadow turns to fog as it wraps around the elf, holding him against the tree. The elf's eyes snap open from the force of hitting the tree. Master Black? The elf questions with wide eyes. Tell me, elf, who sent you to harm my family? I say with cold eyes staring through him. Harm? Dobby would never. Dobby is a good elf. He stutters out with fear on his face. Then why are you here? You are not masterless, that is for sure. So what are you up to? I point my wand towards the elf as I step closer. He looks panicked. Dobby was. Speak, I say as I press my wand up to the elf's neck. Dobby wants to keep Harry Potter safe. His ears fall as he speaks. My eyebrows furrow. Are you the one who has been targeting Harry and stealing his letters? Dobby looks away. Dobby thought if Harry Potter thought his friends abandoned him, he wouldn't go back to Hogwarts. Why can't Harry go back to Hogwarts? I ask, pulling my wand away. It's not safe for Harry Potter. The elf says with genuine concern. Yes, I get that. But why? I ask sternly. Dobby looks away again. Master said to not tell anyone. Dobby must obey his master. His face is stricken with fear. I nod. No matter how much he wants to tell me, an elf will not betray their master. Who is your master? Dobby fidgets a little. Dobby serves the Malfoy family. I nod slowly, anger written on my face. And why do you want to help Harry? I release Dobby from my shroud now that I feel he is trustworthy. Because Dobby knows who master serves. Dobby looks both sad and angry as he speaks. Who is that? I ask quizzically, already knowing the answer. Dobby's small hands ball into fists as he answers through grit teeth. Dobby cannot answer. I nod as expected. You should leave. No one can touch Harry as long as I'm around, and Dumbledore wouldn't slack off either. But Master Black, Harry Poe, he is cut off by my cold voice. I said leave, I say in a commanding and slightly angry voice. The elf snaps his fingers and vanishes. I stand there for a second, rubbing my temples. Why did I get mad at the elf? He was only trying to help. I sigh. Fucking hell, on my birthday as well, I speak to myself as I head back to the house. I realize on the way back that I've been in pajamas this whole time. I roll my eyes as I walk inside quietly and pour myself some tea. I've learned to enjoy the dirt water after being in England for so long. I decide to just stay up since the sun will rise soon. I start to prepare breakfast for everyone since it's almost time for Auntie and Uncle to wake up. Since I am already awake, I decide to make them a full American experience. Not to brag, but I'm pretty good at making breakfast since I made it every single day in my past life. I prepare 3 lits, a pot, and a baking pan. We don't have any gravy, so I have to make it myself. I make bacon, eggs, pancakes, with biscuits and gravy using hickory smoked sausage. I must have made too much noise because Auntie and Uncle came out in their PJs. The second they saw me setting the table, I felt a chill down my spine. I turned to see Auntie giving me a k***ling glare. Soren, it's your birthday, you are supposed to let me cook for you. Not the other way round. She looks angry, but you can tell she is kind of kidding. Uncle Ted looks happy looking at the table. You know I haven't had an American breakfast since I had a business trip in the 70s. I smile, glad to help spread the best thing about America. Auntie smiles, what? Food. I chuckle, no. My cooking. Uncle Ted laughs while Auntie just rolls her eyes. I finish setting up the table and look up at them. I'll go get Ron and Harry. Does either one of you want to volunteer to wake up, sis? I give a wry smile as neither of them wants to. Uncle Ted gets up. How about I get your friends and you can go get your sister? She won't hit you as hard anyway. I roll my eyes, nodding as I start heading to Sis Dora's room. As I reach her room, I knock a few times to no response. I knock again, no response. I sigh, won't be that easy, hey. I slowly begin to open the door. I'm coming in. I notice her room is a lot cleaner than usual. I see a big lump of blankets on her bed, which I can only assume to be her. I grab the top of the pile and pull hard. The 4 or 5 blankets come flying off, exposing the figure of Nymphadora hugging a pillow in disheveled pajamas. She slowly opens her eyes and glares at me. You are lucky it's your birthday. I smile. Hurry up downstairs, I made an American-style breakfast for everyone. You don't want the pancakes to get cold now, do you? I see her smile a bit at the mention of food. You, my good sir, make a tempting offer. Get out, I'll get dressed then head down. I nod as I walk out into the hallway and lock on to the tired faces of Harry and Ron. I smile at their zombie-like walk towards the stairs. I sneak up to them and smack their backs. What is with the long faces on such a nice morning? Harry jumps a bit before he groans, but Ron speaks up. Are you mental? The sun isn't even up yet. I laugh at his suffering. Don't worry, I made breakfast so you know it's good. Harry back at me, surprised. You made breakfast? I nod as we make our way down the stairs. I'm pretty good at it too, if I do say so myself. Ron groans. How are you so awake? You went to sleep after us. I shrug as we get to the dining room to see Auntie already laid out the food for everyone. I would be lying if I said I wasn't excited for biscuits and gravy. I do wonder what English people call it, since their biscuits are very different from mine. Auntie notices us and immediately asks, where is Nymphadora? Before I can answer, I hear an angry holler from behind us on the stairs. I said, don't call me by that name. Auntie smiles. There she is. Come sit down, boys. Uncle Ted is already sitting at the end of the table reading the paper. I don't think he is actually reading though, since he was taking peeks at the food every so often. After everyone sat down, we start setting our plates. The newspaper is quickly put down. Ah! Are we eating? Uncle Ted quickly says as he grabs a few pancakes before anyone else. I have never been one big on compliments, but after we finished eating I had enough for the year. Although they didn't like the look of the biscuits and gravy, they loved the taste. Being an American, it doesn't look odd to me, but I'm sure it looks like vomit on a plate to them. After that, we brought the wizard's chessboard downstairs and did a small tournament. Auntie, Dora, and I got eliminated immediately. I never claimed to be a wise man, and chess has proven that I'm not. Uncle Ted and Harry had some good games, but Uncle Ted ended up winning. The games with Uncle Ted against Ron, however, went on forever. It really wasn't the best idea to do a best of 3, win by 2 rule. It ended up going over an hour, ending 7-5 in favor of Uncle Ted. Apparently in Hogwarts Uncle Ted had made a chess club and was the captain for 4 years. The more you know, hey. Chapter 54, A Happy Birthday, 2. Before we restart the tournament, we hear a knock on the door. I get up to open it since I want to greet everyone first, as it is only proper. Opening it, I see Hermione standing next to 2 very normal-looking people. They are both wearing what I can only call church attire, a truly suburban family. I smile. Hello, Mr. and Mrs. Granger. It is great to finally meet you. I shake both of their hands. Mrs. Granger pulls me into a hug. That you for taking such good care of our Hermione. I know she is very awkward, I'm sure it must have been difficult. Mom. I hear Hermione say in a hushed yell, her cheeks bright as roses. It wasn't much trouble really, I say, pulling out of the hug. Mr. Granger smiles. Hermione told me you were a mature young lad, but it seems she was underselling it. I gesture them inside. Please come in. Our home is mostly muggle, so you don't have to worry about accidentally touching magical objects. They both come in and everyone starts to exchange greetings, and Hermione hands me a wrapped gift. She smiles, still blushing a bit. Happy birthday, Soren. I take the gift with an odd smile. Thanks, I say a bit awkwardly. I find this type of social interaction is difficult. I quickly put the present away while Hermione says hello to the others. When I come back out, my three friends are on the couch talking while watching Mr. Granger and Uncle Ted play chess. Mrs. Granger, Auntie, and Sis are at the kitchen table talking about the wizarding world. I sit down next to Ron on the end and ask Hermione. Why are they playing chess? What did I miss? Hermione rolls her eyes. My father happened to mention he was in the chess club for 6 years in secondary school. Ah, that makes sense. Adult men don't really age past 16 really, they just get better at hiding the immaturity. I laugh a bit. Hermione rolls her eyes. Boys. Harry speaks up. Hey, it's not our fault you don't talk to the girls. I don't think Harry is aware, but that was quite the burn. Ah. I remember now. Daphne Greengrass is supposed to come today as well. Maybe you can be friends with her. I give her a hopeful smile. Hermione scoffs. Not possible, she is a Slytherin. I gasp. I take offense to that, the hat wanted to put me into Slytherin. Ron and Hermione look at me with wide eyes, but Harry speaks up me as well. The hat said I would fit in well there. I nod. Slytherin isn't bad, but the stigma they get must suck. Ron huffs. No good wizard comes out of Slytherin. I chuckle a bit at his assertion. You know, Merlin was a Slytherin. He is said to be the best wizard to live ever on this side of the world. Hermione looks surprised. I didn't know that. It's not covered much in History of Magic. You would have to out of your way to read it. I shrug. Then how did you find it? Ron asks. I shrug again. I read for fun. Hermione looks like she wants to say something but is stopped by a knock at the door. I'll get it, I tell Auntie. I open the door to see a beautiful girl with blonde hair, green eyes, and sharp features standing there looking a bit scared. Next to her is a female house elf who has a stuck-up aura a lot like Creaker. She is only dressed in a linen tunic that hangs to her knees. I smile. Hey Daphne, we were just talking about you, come on in. She flinches nervously as she takes a low curtsy. The Greengrass family greets Lord Black. I roll my eyes and tap the top of her head with a playful "Bad girl, I didn't help you study so your family would try to dig their way into my pockets. Get up, let's go make you some friends. Leela, wait for me to call you, she says to the house elf. The elf looks at me, then back to her, nods, then vanishes in a snap. Again I am forced to roll my eyes at the seriousness of the arrogant house elf. I put my hand on her back as I guide her. And you know, if you wanted to grow a connection between our families, your father should have come as well. Also, we are like second cousins, don't be weird. She blushes hard as she puts her head down. We are third cousins, and my father couldn't make it today. He has been busy at the port the last few weeks. I laugh a bit. Sure, let me introduce you all. I lead her in front of the trio. Ron, Harry, Hermione, this is Daphne Greengrass. Daphne, the red one is Ron, the scrawny one is Harry, and the one with the ever curly hair is Hermione. Daphne lowers her head a bit. It's nice to meet you all. As well as Lord Potter. Harry looks confused and I roll my eyes. We don't use titles here. Harry looks at me, still confused. I'm a lord. Yeah, I thought Hagrid explained everything to you, I say, a little perturbed by his lack of information. He shakes his head. Not that much. All I know is that my family was rich and pretty famous. Daphne gasps. I'm so sorry, I forgot the savior was raised by muggles. Harry smiles. It's fine, I still have a lot to learn. The Black family, the Weasley family, the Greengrass family, and formerly the Potter family are a part of the Sacred 28. The Potter family was kicked out for their stance against blood purity, but they kept their lordship due to money. The Weasley family is considered noble but not lords, because they are poor. No offense, Ron. Ron still hasn't said anything and appears to be pouting. I find it funny, so I won't be interrupting him. Auntie walks up behind me and grabs my shoulders. So young yet already bringing home women. What are you doing at Hogwarts anyway? Fighting trolls, flirting with women, quite the adventurer. I see Daphne blush and Hermione looks a bit flustered. Daphne does a curtsy. It's nice to meet you. I am Daphne Greengrass of the Greengrass family. Auntie smiles and hugs me. I like her, she is cute. Good job Soren. This time I blush alongside her. I slip out of her grip as I walk towards the back door. How about we go play with Lure out back? Harry and Hermione look excited, even Ron does, but Daphne looks confused. Alright, you haven't met her. Lure is my unicorn. I say with a wide smile. Her eyes go wide. The rumors were true. She nearly yells. I nod with a grin. Let's go. We all jog out back to see Lure in her pen bathing in the afternoon sunlight. Lure notices us and gets up, obviously excited to see me. We get inside the pen and she immediately starts snuggling her head into me, making me chuckle. Daphne walks up to Lure. May I pet her? She looks to me for permission. I look at Lure knowing she heard her. Ask her. I gesture to Lure. Daphne looks up nervously at Lure. May I? Lure lowers her head to Daphne, letting her pet her. Daphne lets out a girlish squeal as she pets Lure's nose and bushes her mane through her fingers. Hermione also walks up and strokes her mane. Harry just stands next to me and Ron stands a few feet back mumbling. Won't even let me pet her, but the new girl can? Inequality, I tell you. I smirk at his mumbling. I sit back and watch the girls pet Lure, who seems to be very happy about the attention she is getting. I see Shy land on top of the stable as a package falls from him into my arms. It's labeled from the Malfoy family, to young Lord Black. I roll my eyes. I should wait to open it since I don't want another letter bursting into flames in front of everyone. After a while, Harry walks up and Lure lets him gently pet her. She even lets Ron get close enough to touch her. She must be in a good mood from all the attention. Chapter 55, A Happy Birthday, 3. Once we get done playing with Lure, we head back inside and realize there are a lot more people who have shown up. The entire Weasley family is here and already settled in talking to people. I tell my friends I'll be back and I head to Ron's parents. I walk up to where the parents are talking and speak up. Excuse me, Mrs. Weasley. I tap her shoulder. She turns around and gets a bright smile when she sees me. Ah, Soren dear. Happy birthday. She pulls me into a soft hug like Hermione's mother did. I give my best smile as I pull away. Thank you. I actually wanted to thank you for the Christmas sweater, I like it a lot. I'm glad you like it, dear. She glares at Ron from across the room. More grateful than some children. I chuckle a bit as Mr. Weasley notices me. Soren, you went with the twins to London, yes. My smile turns a bit nervous as Auntie looks over at us. Yet, why? I was wondering, how was the ride? Did she fly smoothly? He looks excited as leans forward and speaks. Mrs. Weasley smacks the back of his head and smiles at me. Ignore him, dear, go play and have fun, it's your birthday after all. I laugh a bit thinking they are similar to Auntie and Uncle Ted. Thanks. I go back to the group and see we have a new member. Ginny is talking to Hermione and Daphne. As I walk up, Ron taps her shoulder and lastly Soren Black, don't get too close or he will hex you. I smack his shoulder. Don't listen to him, Ginny, I assume. I try to give a polite smile. She seems really shy as she only gives a nod and stays close to Hermione like a nervous rabbit. I give a wry smile as Ron comforts me. Don't worry, she is just shy. I shrug, want to go upstairs and play something. Ron and Harry say yes while the other three just shrug. When we get upstairs, Hermione sees the SNES and just rolls her eyes. I laugh at her reaction and gesture towards the bookshelf. I guarantee I have books you have never heard of. I smile at her look of surprise. Daphne is also looking through the books. Why do you have so many books on the dark arts? This might be more than we have at my house. I shrug. My sister is an Auror, so I got her old ones. I also request ones from her sometimes. I also brought some over from Sid's hideaway, but I'm obviously not going to mention that. She looks surprised. Do you plan to be an Auror as well? I remember you had top grades in the class, so you totally could. Hermione gives an unconscious nod as she reads through one of the books. I rub my chin as I think I haven't thought about it. I just want to have fun at school, I guess. She seems unsatisfied with my answer, causing me to laugh. I notice Hermione's brows scrunch and I realize she is reading a book that should not be on the shelf. I quickly close the book and smile at her. Sorry, that one is a bit too dark to be on the shelf. My face shows a bit of anxiety, but I hide it well. Ron and Harry are already distracted, but the girls look at me scrupulously. What is a Horcrux? Hermione asks. Arguably the darkest magic to ever exist and something we shall not be talking about. My anxiety shoots through the roof. And why do you have a book on them? She gives me a glare and Daphne looks concerned. Because I have an interest in how to k*ll them, now that is all for the subject. The book is titled Magic of Mortem by Emmerich. I pull another book off the shelf and hand it to her. Try this one, it has details on curses and how to counter them. Ginny finally speaks up. Is a student really allowed to have all these books? No, not really, but my sister is. According to the Ministry of Magic, they are her possessions and that is how it will stay. I give her a smile but she doesn't meet my eyes. I smirk as I notice her gazing at Harry instead. I roll my eyes and grab a book and start reading with the girls. Ginny sits on the bed behind Ron and Harry and watches them play games until Auntie calls us down to sing Happy Birthday. I shiver as I think of how embarrassing it will be, but I still stand up with the rest of them. When we get downstairs, everyone is sitting around the dinner table and there is a cake in the middle with candles lit. Auntie pulls up a chair and puts it in front of the cake. Sit, she says with an assertive smile. As I sit down, all my friends sit with their parents and Harry sits next to me and Auntie Dromeda. My face tinges a little red as everyone is staring at me. As they all start singing Happy Birthday, my face goes deep red. Even though I'm embarrassed, I'm actually quite happy. The twins are standing up singing loud as if their singing career is on the line for this performance. Once they are done, I blow out the candles and Auntie hugs me, giving me a kiss on the cheek. Happy birthday, Soren. If I blushed anymore, I think my face would be bleeding. After that, people started leaving the party. Hermione's family was first since they had to drive all the way to London. They put their leftover cake in a bag and headed home. Daphne left next since Hermione wasn't there and it was a bit awkward for her. Ginny went with her parents for the last bit that they were there and Ron stayed for another night with Harry. Auntie and Mrs. Weasley decided Harry would stay with the Weasleys for the last month of summer. After they left, I tried to help Auntie clean but she told me to go play since it was my birthday. So we just went upstairs and played games all night. Overall it was a pretty great experience. Chapter 56, Alastair Moody. After Ron and Harry left, I started thinking about getting a secret lair to put my things. So I start researching wards to hide it and places where I could possibly put it. I started with places that are big enough to hide the over 100 Dementors and doesn't have heavy foot traffic. I plan to keep the Dementors in Azkaban for now, however, I want to make a sanctuary similar to what the Vila have done. Just in case I need an army, with the way things are currently going I should be able to handle it myself. But I don't want to be overly arrogant and risk my family's lives. The Black Manor that Auntie's dad lived at is also a good spot I'll use later. So far in the time I've been trying to learn wards, I have also written a letter to Rita Skeeter. I expressed my concern over Alastair Moody's health and asked if she could find me his address so I could check on him. She of course agreed and said she would write me back in a week. I know I'll regret trusting Rita in the future after the bad things she has written about Harry and me, but I have little choice. It makes little difference if she betrays me and writes about me, nothing can be proven. After trying to create a ward around Lure's pen for the first time, I realized I have absolutely no talent in making wards, and this will be a rough learning experience. It may be because wards are the opposite of the dark arts, but I don't know any wards that implement the dark arts. I was in a sour mood for the next few days, but it brightened up when I got a letter back from Rita with Moody's address attached. The same night I got the letter, I decided to sneak out of the house and go see him. I apparate to the closest place I know, which happens to be the King's Cross station. Since he lives in a suburb of London like Harry, it won't take long to fly there. After wrapping myself in my shroud, I take a short flight. I arrive at a house that's exterior looks like it hasn't been taken care of in years. It is a normal-looking house without much uniqueness other than it being quite small. I can see a soul inside the house that is dark grey and has seen a lot of troubles in its life. As I try to make my way inside, I notice there are many wards placed everywhere around the house. If I was a normal wizard, I could have died many times over from the traps. I cleared the traps using my shroud to physically crush the items the wards were attached to. These wards don't even hold a candle to the one placed around Hogwarts or the Vila's sanctuary. After it was clear, I switch back to human form and open the door, which is surprisingly unlocked. When I get to the living room, I notice a man sleeping in the lounge chair wearing Moody's signature leather long jacket. But this man is not Alastair Moody. His hair is blonde, not grey, and he is much too thin. The house smells of alcohol and musk. It's pretty disgusting. My brows furrow as I reach out my shroud to grab the sleeping man, but he flinches in his sleep, so I stop. I carefully watch the man as I draw my wand and point it at him. The man quickly jumps up from the chair, startling me. Avada Kedavra. A bright green light flashes in front of me and Sin springs from my neck blocking the spell. I grab Sin with one hand as I point my wand at him with the other, Sectum Sempra. I swing my wand at his legs like a sword. His eyes go wide as he tried to dodge but gets cut on the back of his calves as he turns falling to the ground. He quickly rolls over and casts again. Avada Kedavra. Again my vision flashes green but this time I'm ready. I throw Sin in front of myself and at him. Sin blocks the spell and lands on the man's face. I step closer as he struggles to pull the lethafold off his face to no avail. I stand over him and wait for him to faint from lack of oxygen. After he faints I pick up Sin and wrap him back around my neck. I roll my neck to relieve some stress. I got arrogant. I almost got hit because I thought I had the stealth advantage. If not for Sin I would have had a new learning experience. I still don't know what happens if I die in my human form and I honestly don't want to find out. As I'm thinking I'm still rubbing Sin who seems to be purring, happy at the attention. I wrap the man in my cloak and stop the bleeding on his legs so he doesn't bleed out. I look closely at his face but I don't recognize him at all. So I check the surrounding for hints to what is going on but the house only has dark artifacts and a large faux glass. I don't need any of the knickknacks so I wait for the imposter to wake up. Only a few minutes later he wakes up and immediately tries to struggle but that's stopped before it can start. He looks at the cloak of fog wrapping around him in confusion which turns to anger as he looks up at me. Who are you? He spits through gnashed teeth. I look at him with a cold gaze. This is my question for you actually. How you answer will determine what happens next, whether you make it through the night alive. My brows furrow as he stays silent. So I grab his arm and pull up his jacket and sleeve. Sure enough, there is a serpent eating a skull, the mark of a Death Eater. If looks could LL I would be dead by now. As we meet eyes I can see the pure hatred he has on his face. I grab him by the neck and begin transforming into my Dementor form. As my vision dulls I reach my full height and speak into his head. Now that I know I can LL you with no repercussions, tell me. Who are you? My dead voice echoes loudly in his head. The anger in his eyes is quickly replaced with fear as he tries to struggle away. GGET away from me. Why you freak? He stutters out with hastened breaths. If you wish to die with your soul intact I suggest you speak quickly. I begin growing bored with this scenario. He tries to regain some of his cold and demeanor as he speaks. I am Corban Yaxley, loyal servant of Lord Voldemort. His voice is rough since I'm still gripping his throat. I recognize his name, he is from a branch family of House Black. I say that but his status as a cousin means nothing to me. Scum is scum. Where is Alastair Moody? I look into his eyes with my sockets to scare him further. Comment. 6 comment. Vote. 1 left. Chapter 57, Night Before. With my poor grey vision, I see him gesture at a trunk tucked at the corner of a room. I try to see inside it to see Moody's soul but my vision is blocked. I assume it's a pocket enchantment. I fully wrap him in my cloak causing him to faint again and fall entirely limp. After I make sure he won't be interfering I shift back to humans again and hide in my shroud. As I'm about to open the trunk I notice there are a lot of empty alcohol bottles. The source of the smell I think to myself but I ignore them still taking note of how odd it is. Opening the trunk and it has layers of trunks inside of itself eventually ending at the size just bigger than a person. The trunk goes deep and down inside I see a nearly naked and unconscious Moody laying at the bottom with some abrasions on his body. I sigh, it seems it was not the real Moody who abandoned my sister in the forest. I lower my cloak into the hole covering him making sure he is asleep then hoisting him up. After I get him on the floor I go back over to Corban shifting into human form about to take my shroud off. Before I do I see 3 people wrap into existence in the middle of the living room. I pull out my wand but don't come out of hiding. I immediately recognize their red aura robes and inch closer to Corban. I can't have them read his memory. All 3 of them help Moody while I put my wand up to Corban's temple. I don't know Legilimens well or at all really so my only choice is to fry his brain. I put some power into it as his body shakes a bit. One of the auras turns around noticing the movement. I quickly take Corban's wand into my cloak and apparate away. I appear on the beach near the North Sea laying on the sand. They for sure knew I was there after that, but I had no choice. If they are used as a searching charm I wouldn't have gotten away. I was reckless. I sigh as I quickly make sure there isn't a charm attached to me then I head home to sleep. Later that week Harry had his birthday. We didn't really have a party but Ron and Harry came over to my house to play games and see Lure. Ron finally got to pet Lure a good amount for once. I got Harry a new cage for Hedwig and a charmed glasses case that repairs glasses that get put inside. Another week passes and school starts soon. Mrs. Weasley has invited me to go shopping for school supplies with them. I accept, but it really isn't really much shopping, it's 1 real book and 7 dumb books. They are all written by Gilderoy Lockhart, someone I've never heard of. So the night before we left I stay the night with Ron and Harry at the Burrow. When I arrive I am honestly shocked at how the house was actually standing. It looked like there were 3 houses stacked unevenly on top of each other, each smaller than the last. Walking inside everyone is already at the entrance except Mr. Weasley, Ron, and Harry. Mrs. Weasley is busy doing something I can't see and the rest are scattered around the open room. When I arrived the twins greet me with streamers and cheers. The Great Lord Black has arrived. My face blushes a bit red. You guys are still mocking Daphne for that? You both are part of a pure-blood family as well. Technically you are both young masters like Draco. Their eyes go wide and they both turn to face the family. We shall now be addressed as young master of House Weasley. Everyone rolls their eyes. Percy walks past them brushing them out of the way with an annoyed look. Don't worry about them, Soren, just ignore them. It's nice to see you again. He puts up a hand to shake. I shake his hand with a wry smile. It's fine, good to see you too, Percy. Mrs. Weasley pushes all 3 of them out of the way. Get. Stop crowding the boys. Soren is here. She yells upstairs. Sit, I was just making hot cocoa. I smile, thanks. I sit across from Ginny and smile at her. You've been living with Harry for a while now. Have you told him that you have a crush on him yet? She looks at me like a deer caught in headlights. She slowly stands up and backs away before sprinting up the stairs. Where are you going? The cocoa is almost done. Mrs. Weasley yells up after her. I laugh a bit at her running figure. The twins both sneer at their sister's embarrassment. I notice their house is full of magical objects, the complete opposite of Auntie's house. They even have an enchanted scrubber that does the dishes for them. It must be nice. As I'm looking around I hear Ron and Harry coming down the stairs. I hear them chatting about why Ginny was running. When I finally see them I notice both of them are still in their pajamas. It's well past midday. Mrs. Weasley turns around to see them both in pajamas. What did I say yesterday? It's almost supper. Go upstairs and get dressed or you aren't getting any hot cocoa. I laugh a bit at their scared faces as they see Mrs. Weasley waving the big spoon at them. After she sees them gone she puts down 3 mugs of hot cocoa on the table. The twins come running and grab 2 of them. Percy rolls his eyes childish. And goes upstairs without grabbing any hot cocoa. Mrs. Weasley looks sad and I like Percy a bit less now. After I finish my drink Ron and Harry come back down so we can eat dinner. We didn't really do much after dinner other than talk and Ron explained to me who the heck Gilderoy Lockhart is. We slept the night away in Ron's room. It was kind of cramped but was still a pretty fun sleepover. The hot cocoa made the night honestly. Chapter 58, Year 2 Supplies, I. The next morning everyone was down for breakfast except Percy. Breakfast was a giant pile of bacon sandwiches. Harry was reading over the list of books for the school year. Fred and I peer over his shoulder reading it. Second-year students will require The Standard Book of Spells, Grade 2 by Miranda Goshawk. Break with a Banshee by Gilderoy Lockhart. Guddying with Ghouls by Gilderoy Lockhart. Holidays with Hags by Gilderoy Lockhart. Travels with Trolls by Gilderoy Lockhart. Voyages with Vampires by Gilderoy Lockhart. Wanderings with Werewolves by Gilderoy Lockhart. Year with the Yeti by Gilderoy Lockhart. I roll my eyes at all the Lockhart books. It must be a rather lucrative way to sell books, what a scummy way to do things. He must have made a deal with a professor or something. Disgusting. You've been told to get all Lockhart's books, too? Fred says a bit surprised. The new Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher must be a fan, bet it's a witch. I laugh a bit at his statement but quickly shut up as I see Molly glaring at us. They won't be cheap, George said looking between Molly and Arthur. Lockhart's books are a few galleons alone. Mrs. Weasley sighs. Well, we'll manage, I can tell she is a bit worried. We should be able to pick Ginny's things up second-hand. Now is the time I was waiting for. Actually Mrs. Weasley, my sister wanted to give her old books to Ginny. She is rather forgetful so she has extremely thorough notes and the books are well taken care of. Ginny looks surprised but doesn't say anything but Molly does. We can't impose on you like that. She appears a little upset at my offer. But I double down. Mrs. Weasley, you and your family have treated me as one of your own. Please allow me to give you the books as a gift. Besides, with all you have given me, I have yet to give you anything. It is unfair to not accept my gift. Molly looks like she is about to retort, but Arthur grabs her hand and looks at me. We will accept your kindness. Family helps family after all. I smile, glad that he accepted, while Molly only sighs and nods. Just then Percy walked in with his prefect badge polished and pinned to his sweater vest. Morning, all. Lovely day, he says with a half grin. As he is about to sit down, a loud smack comes from the window. We turn to see Shy fly in carrying a letter and the Weasley's owl falling after hitting the window. Shy lands on my outstretched arm as I grab the letter from his beak. Ron walks over to the laying down owl and grabs the letter from it as well. Errol, the owl, just lays there as if playing dead, causing Ron to sigh. Pathetic. I agree with him internally, but I don't say anything. Ron begins reading his letter. It's from Hermione. It says she hopes we aren't in trouble from the care incident. She says I should get another owl and that one more delivery will make Errol actually keel over. I give a nod. Yeah, Errol is on his last leg. This earns me a glare from Ron. She also says that she has been very busy with schoolwork. How is that possible? We are on vacation, he says in horror. Harry and I look at each other but just shrug. That sounds like Hermione, I say. Ron rolls his eyes and continues. Apparently she will be going to London today to get her books for the school year. I guess we will see her there. Hearing this, Mrs. Weasley claps her hands. Go on everyone, get ready to leave. We don't want to be out too late getting your things. Everyone scrambles at her words. Percy, Arthur, and I are left at the table since we are already prepared to leave. Molly clears the table while Arthur goes and gets the flow powder. I read the letter Hermione sent me, but it is practically the same as Ron's, but she thanks me for the books I lent her. After a few minutes, everyone is downstairs and prepared to leave. Molly takes the flower pot of flow powder from Arthur and looks disappointed. We're running low, Arthur, she sighs. We'll have to buy some more today. Ah well, guests first. Harry, Soren, you first. They get flow powder for a discount through the ministry, right? I wonder to myself before turning to Harry. I smile as I gesture Harry to go ahead of me, but he shakes his head. I've never done this before, why don't you show me? I nod my head and step under the mantle while grabbing a pinch of flow powder. I turn to Harry. I have to stop at Gringotts first anyway. Be sure to speak clearly. I throw the flow powder into the fire and it flares up into a green color. Gringotts Bank. I speak in a loud and clear voice. I vanish from the fire with a roaring sound in my ears. I appear again at one of the many fireplaces in the main lobby of Gringotts Bank. Around me, I see a few other people coming out of the fireplaces, joining me in the massive lines. After a short wait, I was able to pull a few hundred galleons out of the bank. I only wanted enough till break. I still have quite a bit on hand, but a bit more never hurt. As I'm going to head out, I see Hermione and her parents standing at the steps of Gringotts. I wave my arm. Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Granger. Hermione perks up when she sees me. Soren. What are you doing here? She smiles as she is walking to me with her parents in tow. I was just grabbing some money before getting some books. What about you? I ask curiously. Mr. Granger replies, we were just about to exchange money. It is a bit of a burden to exchange currency every time we come here, but there isn't much we can do. You two can catch up while we go in. Hermione nods without thinking. Her father rolls his eyes and her mother laughs. We begin chatting mainly about what she has been reading over the summer. I don't think she has read anything particularly interesting, and she hasn't tried apparition yet, so I'm not fully focused. Midway through the one-sided conversation, I see Hagrid and Harry coming from the dark area that leads to Nocturne Alley. I grab Hermione's shoulder and point. Hey look, that's Harry over there. She immediately turns and spots him. Taking a few steps to the top of the Gringotts stairs, she yells to him, Harry. Harry. Over here. Hagrid and Harry approach and I immediately notice his glasses are cracked, but I don't mention it. Hello, Hagrid. Hermione and I say. Harry, what happened to your glasses? Never mind, what are you doing at Gringotts? Hermione asks. Nothing right now, first I have to find the Weasleys. He says, looking around. How did you get separated? Didn't I only leave a few minutes ago? I ask, confused. I am about to continue, but I see his face blushed a bit, so I stop. Wonder what happened? I wonder to myself. Chapter 59, Year 2 Supplies, 2. That's we turn to see what Hagrid is looking at. Percy, Ron, Fred, George, and Mr. Weasley are all running to us through the crowd. Harry. Mr. Weasley says panting. Soren, you found him. Molly's frantic, she is heading over now. Where did you come out? Ron asks. Nocturne Alley, Hagrid says grimly. Excellent, said Fred and George together. We've never been allowed in, said Ron enviously. I should ruddy well think not, growled Hagrid. I roll my eyes as I see Mrs. Weasley trudging through the crowd holding a bag in one hand and Ginny's hand in the other. I can see even from this distance that Ginny has a deep red blush on her face as she is pulled through the crowd. Oh Harry dear, you could have been anywhere. She grabs Harry making sure he is all right. Noticing some soot she takes out a brush and cleans him off. Harry pulls out the gift I got him and repairs his glasses. Well, I'll be off, Hagrid said as he backed away. I'll be seeing yer at Hogwarts. He walks away as the three of us wave goodbye. As we begin to walk into Gringotts, Harry speaks in a loud whisper as he pulls Ron and me close. Guess who I saw at Borgin and Burke's? We are staying quiet until he answers himself. Malfoy and his father. My brows raise in surprise. Although Borgin and Burke's is a legitimate shop, they are known for having some things on the darker side of magic. Some of the things there are borderline illegal to own, but it has a solid market, so the ministry doesn't often crack down on it. Things that make the government money often aren't illegal. Mr. Weasley's ears perk up. Did Lucius Malfoy buy anything? No, he was selling. Harry says quietly. So he's worried, said Mr. Weasley with grim satisfaction. Oh, I'd love to get Lucius Malfoy for something. My extended family all seem to be extremely shady. Hey, I asked Mr. Weasley. Mr. Weasley's expression goes hard. Well, he was a Death Eater who only escaped persecution with the power of money. He deserves to be behind bars. Mrs. Weasley grabs his arm. Be careful, Arthur, that's not your job. Don't go biting off more than you can chew. Mr. Weasley smiles and is about to reply, but he notices people in front of us, the Grangers. Ah, Dr. Granger. Great to see you again. Her parents seem a bit shy at how forward Arthur is, but still greet him kindly. Great to see you again, Arthur. Mr. Granger says with a wry smile. Now that we are here again, you can finally tell me. What is a doctor, and why does it replace your first name? He says with a genuine interest. I roll my eyes as we walk past and get in line to pull money out for Harry and Mrs. Weasley. I don't know what I expected from the Weasley vault, but I certainly expected more from a pure-blood family. When the vault opens, my jaw almost drops, but I manage to not react since it would be rude. I truly didn't expect them to be so poor. Inside the vault were a single galleon and a small pile of sickles, 58 according to the goblin. I expected there to be more since the vault number was 687, only one spot away from mine. But I guess they only got this vault by being a pure-blood family. After she swept all the coins into the bag, she got up with a smile. Let's move on. When we get to Harry's vault, I could see he becomes visibly uncomfortable. I can understand his thoughts well. If we had gone to my vault after that, I would feel bad as well. Inside Harry's vault was a giant pile of gold, only a few times more than mine, which confused me. The Potter household should have mountains. Why does their personal vault have so little? They should be comparable to the Black family vault, if not more, since they were a business family. I guess I have no way to know or find out. After Harry grabs a handful or two, we hurry up and get out. I don't want him to get too uncomfortable. Back outside on the marble steps, we all begin to separate. Percy mutters vaguely about needing a new quill. Fred and George had spotted their friend from Hogwarts, someone that I've never met before. Mrs. Weasley and Ginny are going to a second-hand robe shop. Mr. Weasley began insisting on taking the Grangers off to the Leaky Cauldron for a drink, their first drink of magical alcohol. I'm sure they were beginning to get annoyed at his pushiness. Despite coming from a good place, it still is pretty rude. We'll all meet at Flourish and Blots in an hour to buy your school books, said Mrs. Weasley, setting off with Ginny, who is blushing again. And not one step down Nocturne Alley, she shouted at the twins' retreating backs. They smirk as the twins run off with their friend. Since we have all day, we decide to stop for food first. The first stall we find is a kebabs vendor. They were all extremely good and we ate them while strolling down the street. I still don't know what type of meat they are even after finishing the two I got. Ron gazed longingly at all the Quidditch shops we passed, his eyes lingering at the robes and brooms especially. But first, we stopped at the joke shop. Sure enough, we met Fred and George with their friend there. Upon seeing me they run up to me with wide smiles, obviously planning something. Lord Soren! Fred yells in a royal manner as they approach. How about you fund our jokes for the year, George says in a joking manner as he elbows my shoulder. While the other twin puts his arm around me. At the suggestion, I get a wide smile that gives me an idea. How about I give you missions to take on? Upon finishing them you will be monetarily compensated. Ron's eyes go wide. You can't be serious. He is cut off by Fred grabbing him and covering his mouth. Go on, Fred says as he secures Ron. Harry and I laugh while Hermione looks annoyed. I'll give you each 2 sickles now. If you can get the new defense against the dark arts teacher to eat a fart bean I'll give you each 10 more. You guys could make a salary with the missions I give you. Their eyes are full of greed with wide grins on their faces. Am I included in this? Their friend chimes in. I look at him oddly. I don't know you so no. He holds out his hand. I'm Lee Jordan, nice to meet you. I shake his hand. Soren Black, it's a pleasure. Now am I included? He raises a brow. A toothy grin grows on my face. No. Chapter 60, Year 2 Supplies, 3. After handing a few sickles over to Fred and George we continued random shops, now really buying anything. Outside an old shop that sells used and stained robes, we found Percy sitting down reading a book called Prefects Who Gained Power. He looks over his book at Ron, scanning us as well. Go away please. He mutters, returning his eyes to his book. Ron scoffs and I just smile. Why are you all alone reading a book on a day out with your family? Even Hermione doesn't do that and she was the second best first year. I say the last sentence while grinning at Hermione who is already glaring at me. Ron openly chuckles while I see Harry hide his laugh. Percy rolls his eyes and I hear him say childish under his breath. He sighs. I cannot be distracted from my goal, even for a moment. He goes back to his book, ignoring us. I shrug and Ron's face twitches as he ushers us away. Course, he's very ambitious, Percy, he's got it all planned out, he wants to be Minister of Magic. He says in a spiteful tone under his breath. A wry smile shows on my face. It sounds like you don't want him to succeed. Ron sighs. I want him to succeed, but it feels like he is pushing away from us. His family. Because we will harm his chances. I put my hand on his shoulder. Wow Ron, that's probably the most insightful thing you've ever said. And very out of character. He shoves me away a bit. Oh, bugger off. Harry and Hermione laugh before Ron smirks. Sorry, let's go get our books, it's best to get the shopping done now. Give me a sec, I have to make a quick purchase, I say, thinking about the summer. Before heading to the bookshop we head to Wiseacres and I buy 10 more sets of Seekers coins. I plan to give them to the people I think may need help in the future. They are quite handy after all. After that, we head to Flourish and Blots to get our books, but we do stop at small side stalls along the way. There were a few small stalls I liked, mainly the sweets. Chocolate is still my favorite so far. The bookstore is crowded with people all making a fuss to get in. Above the big show window of the store is a sign. Gilderoy Lockhart will be signing copies of his autobiography. Magical Me. Today 1230 to 430. My shoulders droop seeing how annoying it will be to get our books today. Why today? I just watch the middle-aged witches clamoring to get in while a tired-looking old wizard tries to get them orderly. We can actually meet him. Hermione squealed in joy. I mean, he's written almost the whole book list. As the words leave her mouth I feel as if my day has been ruined instantly. Fans of anything annoy me, learning my friend is a fan? A tragic event has just taken place. I roll my eyes. Ah, yes, all of those overpriced books, how fantastic. I say sarcastically. Hermione gives me a humph as she pushes through the crowd of witches so we can get our books. I follow close behind since I need my books even if I don't like it. The line winds through the aisles to the very back so we had to squeeze through the raving middle-aged witches. We each grab a copy of Standard Book of Spells, Grade 2, and sneak to the front of the line where Ron and Hermione's parents are standing. I sigh in relief as there is a bit of room to breathe. Oh, there you are, good, good. We'll be able to see him soon. She sounds far too excited for this, but oh well, not my wife. Gilderoy Lockhart comes slowly into view, seated at a table surrounded by large pictures of his own face, all winking and flashing dazzlingly white teeth at the crowd. The real Lockhart is wearing robes of forget-me-not blue that exactly matched his eyes, his pointed wizard's hat was set at a jaunty angle on his wavy hair. His appearance made me want to sigh from exhaustion. How much effort does that take every morning? Not a single wrinkle could be found on his robes and his hair perfectly stayed. He must be very good at hygiene charms, perhaps I should work on them. A short man near us is hopping from place to place taking photographs with a magical camera that emitted puffs of purple smoke with every flash of light. I send a glare his way but he doesn't seem bothered as he continues his work. Out of the way. He snarls at Ron trying to shove his way past but I shove him before he can step on Ron's feet. The short man looks up at me surprised. This is for the Daily Prophet, young man. He says in a rude tone. I step in front of Ron with a cold glare. Does it look like I care at all? Go around. I speak the last words slowly. The short man looks like he wants to talk back but seeing Gilderoy gaze in our direction he stops and takes more pictures. Gilderoy locks eyes with me then with Harry and blanks out for a second. It can't be, is that the Harry Potter? He says in surprise. The crowd parts between the two while whispering loudly. I roll my eyes at his use of a boy for publicity. Lockhart quickly grabs Harry by the arm and brings him to the front of the crowd. The crowd bursts into applause. Harry's face is dyed red like a tomato, no, redder than a tomato. I look over and see Ron who looks annoyed while Hermione looks infatuated. I chuckle a bit at the absurdity of the moment. The reporter from the Daily Prophet is madly taking pictures as Harry puts on a horrible fake smile. His face is twitching a bit and I think he may even be sweating. Ladies and gentlemen, he says loudly, waving for the crowd to quiet. What an extraordinary moment this is. The perfect moment for me to make a little announcement I've been sitting on for some time. When young Harry here stepped into Flourish and Blots today, he only wanted to buy my autobiography which I shall be happy to present him now, free of charge. The crowd applauded again. He had no idea, he shakes Harry aggressively as he smiles at him, that he would shortly be getting much more than my book, Magical Me. He and his schoolmates will, in fact, be getting the real Magical Me. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I have great pleasure and pride in announcing that this September, I will be taking up the post of defense against the dark arts teacher at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. It clicks in my head, no wonder we have so many books written by him in the curriculum, he is the teacher and the books are all for one class. Wow, how narcissistic and greedy to make your own students buy your own book. The crowd cheers loudly at his announcement, far louder than before. Even Mrs. Weasley and Hermione join them. As fast as Gilderoy pushed the books onto Harry he also pushes Harry away. Harry stumbles a bit over near Ginny. It's too loud to hear him but I see him mumble something and put the books he got into her cauldron with a blushed face. My eyebrows raise as my grin turns a bit devilish. Progress.
Thanks for listening.